Chapter 432. Lin Shihao worked until late into the night before returning home. He opened the door and found Yisiki sitting on the sofa waiting for him. He quickly changed his shoes and walked over to her. His voice was slightly hoarse as he said, "Honey, didn't I tell you not to wait for me? Are you tired?" Yisiki pursed her lips and smiled. She moved closer to him and wrapped her arms around his waist, hugging him tightly. His body still carried the chill of the night. His handsome brows relaxed and a gentle smile appeared in his deep eyes. He kissed her hair gently. She leaned on his chest and listened to his deep and powerful heartbeat. Her heart ached, but she had a faint smile on her face. "Hubby, are you hungry? I made supper for you." He placed his broad palm on her waist and laughed deeply. "I wasn't hungry at first, but now that you mention it, I'm suddenly a little hungry." She looked up and kissed his thin chin. "Take a shower first. I'll heat up the supper." "Okay." He ruffled her hair and smiled affectionately. By the time Yisiki brought out the supper, he had already taken a shower and changed into white home clothes. The gentle light made him look even more handsome, gentle and elegant. His chiseled face was even thinner and there was a faint smile on his thin lips. He quietly watched her walk towards him from afar. She had made him oatmeal, which had the effect of dispelling his restlessness and promoting sleep. The porridge was very fragrant and soft. After drinking half a bowl of porridge, his entire stomach felt warm and even his tired body seemed to relax a lot. She quietly nestled in his arms and listened to the ticking sound of the clock on the wall. Her heart was filled with desolation. If only time could stop at this moment forever, how good would that be? She hugged his waist with both hands and slowly closed her eyes. She used her heart to feel the warmth of his body and listen to his heartbeat. She greedily breathed in the unique faint fragrance on his body. She wanted to engrave all of this in her mind because after tomorrow, he would no longer belong to her. Lin Shihao thought she had fallen asleep and smiled gently. He then carried her up and placed her on the bed. The moment he touched the bed, Yisiki uneasily opened her eyes and hugged him even tighter in a panic. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Seeing her uneasy gaze, Lin Shihao's heart ached. He took the opportunity to lie beside her and pull her into his arms. Yisiki couldn't sleep the whole night. She heard his steady breathing and knew that he had fallen asleep. She reached out her hand and stroked his well-defined cheek. It didn't matter that she couldn't see his face clearly in the dark night. She had already used her fingers to engrave him in her heart. The next morning, when Lin Shihao woke up, Yisiki had already prepared breakfast. When he came out of the bedroom, she was wearing an apron and was busy in the kitchen. She turned her head and smiled brightly at him. "Hubby, you can have breakfast after washing up." He smiled and felt a little distressed. "Why don't you sleep a little longer? I want to watch you go to work." She washed her hands and brought the breakfast to the table. She urged him, "Hurry up and wash up. The breakfast will be cold later." Lin Shihao was about to go to work. Yisiki wrapped a scarf around him and kissed him on the lips. Then she hugged him. "Hubby, go to work. I'll miss you." "Honey, I'll miss you too." Lin Shihao kissed her forehead and reluctantly let go of her. If he knew that this was their farewell kiss, he definitely wouldn't have left. Yisiki stood in the corridor and watched him enter the elevator. The elevator door slowly closed and his handsome figure disappeared. She silently turned around and locked the door, crying silently. Yesterday afternoon, she had already rented a small 2-bedroom apartment near the company. It cost her half a month's salary. There was a bed, a wardrobe, a washing machine, an air conditioner, and other appliances. She only needed to bring her suitcase in and she could move in. After Nyo finished breakfast, Yisiki squatted in front of her and said softly, Nyo, from today onwards, you and Mommy will move out, okay?" Nyo's beautiful big eyes widened. "What? Is Daddy coming with us?" "No, it's just the two of us. Daddy will still live here." With every word she said, her heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Nyo was stunned and suddenly burst into tears. "Mommy, why are you two living separately? Are you getting a divorce? Is it because Grandma doesn't like me so she wants you to divorce Daddy?" Yisiki's heart ached. She hugged her daughter tightly. "Nyo, Daddy and Mommy are divorcing not because Grandma doesn't like you." "Why? Why are you getting a divorce?" "I don't want you to get a divorce. Mommy, don't divorce, okay?" Nyo cried and looked up at her pitifully with her big wet eyes. She kept begging her. "Mommy, don't divorce. Nyo, listen to Mommy." Yisiki held her daughter's tear-stained face and coaxed her gently. "Even if Daddy and Mommy divorce, you're still our Xiaobao. We'll still love you like before. You can come back to see Daddy often." "No, I don't want to. I don't want you two to be separated. Nyo cried until she was out of breath. Her little face was red and her little chest was heaving violently. Her heartbroken look made Yisiki's heart ache to the extreme. Yisiki hugged her daughter and coaxed her. She tried to persuade her, but she couldn't persuade her to accept reality. Time passed, and the people from the moving company would soon come to help her move the luggage. However, Nyo was still throwing a tantrum in her arms and refused to leave. Yisiki had no choice but to harden her heart. She held her daughter's tender shoulders and said in a hoarse voice, Nyo, if you don't want to leave with mommy, then stay here with daddy. Her daughter had been closer to her since she was young and relied on her more. When she heard her words, she immediately panicked and cried loudly. She hugged her tightly and refused to let go. Nyo, mommy also can't bear to leave your daddy. However, if mommy continues to be with daddy, he will become a criminal and even go to jail. Do you want to see daddy go to jail? Yisiki felt that she was being extremely cruel to force Nyo to accept these very realistic things. Nyo didn't quite understand. Although she didn't know why daddy would go to jail if her parents were together, she didn't want daddy to become a criminal. Therefore, she cried bitterly for a long time and made a racket for a long time. In the end, she accepted this reality. When Yisiki carried her daughter and left the home that they had lived in for 7 years, she and Nyo both shed tears at the same time. Nyo's eyes were swollen like walnuts. She leaned on her shoulder and didn't say a word. She just cried silently. The moving company moved their luggage to their new home. Nyo's new bedroom was much smaller than the previous one. She sat silently on the bed and hugged the teddy bear that daddy gave her for Christmas. She secretly wiped away her tears. Yisiki forced herself to stay awake and tidied up their luggage in the living room. She looked up and saw her daughter's thin and small back. Her heart ached. Their divorce was a huge blow to her daughter. She would love her daughter even more in the future and slowly heal the hurt in her heart. A melodious ringtone sounded. It was Xiao Tianxing. Do you have time? Come out for a cup of coffee? Yisiki looked up at her daughter and quickly walked into her bedroom. She lowered her voice and said, I'm unpacking my luggage now. I don't have time. Unpacking your luggage? What are you doing? Are you going out to relax again? No. She paused. Nyo and I moved out. I'm planning to get a divorce. Xiao Tianxing was silent for 2 seconds. Are you serious? She nodded. I've already left the divorce agreement with him. Xiao Tianxing frowned and said in a deep voice, Tell me the address. I'll go to your place. Yisiki gripped her phone uncomfortably. Why are you coming? My place is a mess. I haven't tidied it up yet. Xiao Tianxing sounded impatient. Don't think too much. I'm worried about Nyo. Tell me the address. The corners of Yisiki's mouth twitched helplessly. In the end, she told him her address. She had just tidied up her and Nyo's clothes, took a mop and was about to clean when the doorbell rang. Xiao Tianxing was wearing a black coat, standing tall and handsome at the door. After he entered the door, he walked around as if he had returned to his own home. Finally, he smacked his lips. It's passable. It's just a little small. How big is the place for just the two of us to live in? Yisiki was a little speechless. Okay, you do what you need to do. I'll go see Nyo. Xiao Tianxing waved his hand and left her behind. He went straight to Nyo's room. Nyo had heard someone coming, but she was still immersed in her sadness and didn't want to talk to anyone. She sat on the bed in a daze, holding a big furry bear in her arms. Xiao Tianxing stood at the door and felt his heart ache when he saw her lonely little figure. After 2 seconds of silence, his lips curled up into a bright smile. He said in a light tone, Little Nyo, Uncle Xiao is here. Long time no see. Did you miss me? He squatted in front of Nyo and realized that her eyes were swollen like peaches. There were still traces of tears on her fair little face. Her chest was rising and falling slightly as she suppressed her sobs. Her little nose was red from rubbing like a cute chili. His heart ached as if it was being pricked by needles. He rubbed her soft hair lovingly and said softly, Nyo, Uncle Xiao will take you out to play, okay? Nyo didn't say anything. Her long eyelashes fluttered slightly and bean-sized tears rolled down again. Nyo, be good. Don't cry. Uncle Xiao, who had always been sharp-tongued, felt that he was at a loss for words for the first time. He didn't know how to make the little girl happy, so he could only hug her and gently pat her back. He said over and over again, Be good. Don't cry. Xiao Tianxing didn't know if it was because his embrace was too similar to Lin Shihao's embrace or because she was tired from crying. After maintaining this position for half an hour, he suddenly realized that she had fallen asleep. Her little head was tightly pressed against his chest. A pair of tender little hands were firmly grabbing his clothes. This was a sign of insecurity. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 433. After Yi Siki finished cleaning, she walked in Nyo-Nyo's room and found Xiao Tianxing sitting stiffly on the bed with a sleeping Nyo-Nyo in his arms. She lowered her voice and said, "Put the child down. Aren't you tired carrying her like this?" Xiao Tianxing also lowered his voice. "I'm not tired. I'm afraid that I'll wake her up if I move." Yi Siki then noticed that Nyo-Nyo was clutching his clothes with both hands. She roughly estimated that he had been in this position for at least an hour. How could he not be tired? She thought for a moment and said softly, "You should put her on the bed. Nyo-Nyo is sleeping soundly. She won't wake up." Sure. Xiao Tianxing was afraid that she would wake Nyo-Nyo up, so he gave her a look and said softly, "I'm hungry. Go and cook." Yi Siki was a little touched when she saw that he was persevering so hard and refusing to give up. She shook her head and didn't try to persuade him anymore. She walked into the kitchen and prepared to cook. Suddenly, she realized that they had just moved in and didn't even have kitchen utensils. Xiao Tianxing noticed that Yi Siki had returned to Nyo-Nyo's room. He lifted his chin and asked her with his eyes, "What's the matter?" She shrugged helplessly and said softly, "We don't have kitchen utensils. Let's order takeout for lunch today." He raised his eyebrows and didn't object. Yi Siki found a restaurant with good reviews online and called to order takeout. Then she continued to tidy up the room. Nyo-Nyo slept until the takeout arrived. She rubbed against Xiao Tianxing's arms in a daze and called out, "Daddy," softly. Xiao Tianxing's heart trembled. A thought popped up in his mind. It would be great if such an adorable child was his daughter. Nyo-Nyo didn't hear a response. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked up to see Xiao Tianxing. She blinked her slightly red and swollen eyes. "Uncle Xiao? It's me, Nyo-Nyo. Did you sleep enough?" Xiao Tianxing smiled and rubbed her hair. She nodded in a daze. "Then let's go eat now. Your mommy has ordered a lot of your favorite dishes." Xiao Tianxing stood up with her in his arms and walked to the living room. At the dinner table, Xiao Tianxing told a lot of jokes to make Nyo-Nyo happy. Nyo-Nyo finally smiled. Yi Siki looked at him gratefully. He raised his eyebrows proudly and looked very arrogant. Yi Siki was also amused by his childish expression. After eating and resting for a while, Yi Siki planned to go shopping at the supermarket. She had already made a long list and Xiao Tianxing insisted on going with them. There were many people in the supermarket. Most of them were there to buy New Year goods. Xiao Tianxing pushed the shopping cart while Yi Siki held Nyo-Nyo's hand. At first glance they looked like a family of three. Yi Siki stood in front of the shelves with Nyo-Nyo. When choosing goods, she always smiled and asked for Nyo-Nyo's opinion. She deliberately teased her to interact with her so that she could pull her out of her sad mood. "Nyo-Nyo, look at this pillow. Isn't it cute?" Yi Siki picked up a tanuki pillow and waved her arms with a smile. "Do you like it? If you like it, we'll buy it." Nyo-Nyo puffed up her cheeks and blinked her big eyes. She pointed at the pillow on the shelf with her pink finger. "I like the Easy Bear pillow." "Okay, then we'll buy the Easy Bear." Yi Siki put down the tanuki and picked up the Easy Bear pillow. She handed it to her daughter and smiled. "Nyo-Nyo, help mommy carry it, okay?" Nyo-Nyo nodded and obediently followed her mother with the Easy Bear pillow. Her attention was gradually attracted by the dazzling array of goods. In addition, Xiao Tianxing deliberately made her happy, so she temporarily forgot about her sadness. Pots, pans, and daily necessities. The things they bought almost filled the trunk of Xiao Tianxing's car. He worked hard without complaint, carrying several shopping bags on his shoulders and finally sending the mother and daughter upstairs. After they finished packing, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. Yi Siki smiled at Xiao Tianxing and said, "Thank you for your hard work today. Let me treat you to a meal. I know a good restaurant nearby." Xiao Tianxing shrugged. "Okay, I'm hungry too." After the meal, Yi Siki called the waiter to pay the bill. The waiter looked at Xiao Tianxing and smiled. "Madam, your husband has already paid the bill." Xiao Tianxing's lips curved, but he didn't explain further. "Madam? Sir? What did this have to do with anything?" Yi Siki was both embarrassed and amused. She explained, "You've misunderstood. I'm friends with this gentleman." The waiter quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry." "It's okay." After the waiter left, Yi Siki complained, "Didn't we agree that it was my treat? Why did you secretly pay the bill?" Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows. "I've never let a woman pay the bill." Yi Siki was speechless. You're such a male chauvinist, he chuckled. This is called gentlemanly behavior. On the way home, Nyonyo fell asleep in Yi Siki's arms. Xiao Tianxing looked sideways at the mother and daughter and whispered, "It's almost the spring festival. Are you planning to spend it with the child alone?" Yi Siki felt a tinge of bitterness in her heart. She said calmly, "If it's just the two of us, wouldn't it be too lonely? There's no need for a divorced woman to make herself so miserable. I'm planning to bring Nyonyo back to my parents' home for the spring festival. It's just that I haven't thought of how to tell my parents about the divorce. It's better to deal with the pain quickly than to prolong it. It's better to tell them sooner." Xiao Tianxing's deep eyes had a tinge of pity. "They're your parents. I think they'll understand you. I just don't want them to worry about me. Ever since I was young, they've always worried about me. I thought that after getting married, their lives would be easier." Her tone carried a hint of tiredness and sadness. "In our parents' eyes, we'll always be children." Xiao Tianxing chuckled. "Just like you. When you're 60 years old, Nyonyo will already be a parent. In your heart, she'll still be your child, right?" She smiled. "That's true. No matter how old Nyonyo is in my heart, she'll always be a little girl who needs my protection." He smiled. "If you don't want your parents to worry, then let them know that you're living well. Divorce isn't the end of life. It's the beginning of a new life. Siki, you're a very strong woman. You can do it." Her eyes welled up. I can do it." Xiao Tianxing sent the mother and daughter home. Before he left, he nagged her to lock the door and close the windows. She nodded repeatedly. He was still worried, so he took her phone and set his phone number to 1. Then he returned the phone to her. "I've already set my number to speed dial. If there's anything, feel free to contact me." I know. Hurry home. It's cold and the roads are dark. Drive carefully." He smiled. "If I don't leave, you'll push me out of the door, won't you?" She was embarrassed. "No way. I just don't want to waste any more of your time." His smile widened. He suddenly took a step forward and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her tightly and whispered in her ear, "Take care of yourself and Nyonyo. Good night." Her face was burning hot. She reached out to push him away, but he had already let go of her. He raised his eyebrows and left happily. She was amused and angry at the same time. He finally left. She was the only one left in the empty living room. She glanced at Nyonyo's room and suddenly felt a little sad. She hugged her knees and sat on the sofa in a daze. She didn't know how long she had been sitting there in a daze. Her phone suddenly rang. Her body trembled and she snapped back to her senses. She glanced at the caller ID and her heart jumped. Shihao. She pressed the answer button and went back to her bedroom. When Lin Shihao came home from work, he realized that Yi Siki and Nyonyo were gone. Their clothes and daily necessities were also gone. He immediately had a bad feeling. He was so nervous that his heart almost stopped beating. His fingers trembled as he dialed Yi Siki's number. When he heard her familiar voice on the other end of the phone, he gripped the phone tightly and tried to control his emotions. "Honey, where did you and Nyonyo go? When are you coming back?" Yi Siki's eyes glistened with tears. She said slowly, "Shihao, I left a divorce agreement on the bedside table on the right. I've already signed it. Take some time tomorrow and we'll go and settle the divorce procedures." Lin Shihao quickly ran to the bedside table and opened the bedside table. Indeed, there was a divorce agreement lying inside. The blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing. His whole body was icy cold. His chest rose and fell rapidly. He clenched his fists tightly. His deep eyes were surging with shocking anger. "I don't agree to the divorce. You promised me that you would stay with me until the end. Yi Siki, how dare you lie to me?" Yi Siki's eyelashes fluttered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She tried her best to calm her voice. "Shihao, I'm sorry. I can't take it anymore. Bai Meiwei's child is almost 6 months old. I can't accept another woman's child calling you daddy. So let's get a divorce." Her words were like a basin of cold water that instantly extinguished his burning anger. He took 2 steps back and slammed heavily against the wall. His back was almost numb from the pain. She had once said that if Bai Meiwei insisted on giving birth to the child, she would leave with Nyonyo. She wasn't just saying it. She really couldn't accept it. Yet he was forcing her to accept this reality. Was he too cruel? There was dead silence on the phone. Yi Siki started to feel uneasy. She softly called out his name. "Shihao." Lin Shihao felt as if someone had opened a big hole in his chest. The cold wind blew into his chest, causing him to shiver from the cold. He gritted his teeth hard and said in a low and hoarse voice, "I won't agree to the divorce. I won't agree to it even if I die." Isiki bit her lip and held back her sobs. She slowly said, "Lin Shihao, let me go. Don't make me hate you." Lin Shihao's eyes were red. He stared fixedly at their wedding photo on the wall and said slowly, "Then hate me." Even if she hated him, he didn't want to let her go. She was his wife. She would be his forever. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 434. Isiki's face was covered in tears. Her voice trembled as she said, "Why are you doing this? Don't you know that I don't love you anymore? I'll wait for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 tomorrow morning." After saying this, she immediately hung up the phone and started to cry bitterly. She didn't dare to cry too loudly for fear of waking her daughter up. She covered her mouth with both hands and her chest tightened as if it was about to explode. She felt so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe properly. Lin Shihao still had a lot to say to her, but before he could ask her where she and Nyonyo were staying, she hung up the phone. He quickly dialed her number again, but her phone was turned off. Lin Shihao's emotions were extremely complicated. Anger and heartache intertwined together and made him feel suffocated. He was like a violent lion as he punched the wall with all his might. The veins on the back of his hand were throbbing and his knuckles were turning white. His tall and straight body was trembling from his anger. The sudden burst of coldness in his eyes made one shudder in fear. Isiki specially took a day off to prepare for the divorce. She sat in the lobby of the Civil Affairs Bureau and waited for more than an hour, but Lin Shihao didn't show up. She took out her phone and dialed his number. After 3 or 4 rings, the call went through. She said softly, "Shihao, I'm waiting for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Come over quickly." She didn't know that Lin Shihao was standing outside the Civil Affairs Bureau and looking at her through the glass door. His thin lips were pursed and his expression was cold. His voice was cold as he said, "I said before that I won't agree to the divorce. You don't have to wait for me anymore. No matter how long you wait, I won't appear." She frowned. "Shihao, don't be like this." Beep beep, he had already hung up the phone. Isiki sat there in a daze. She held the phone in her hand and her heart was in a mess. He knew that the marriage couldn't be maintained, so why did he persist? Wasn't he afraid that his reputation would be ruined? She sat there in a daze and didn't know what to do. Although she hadn't gotten the divorce certificate yet, she should tell Bai Jiao that they were about to divorce so that he would give up the idea of suing Lin Shihao. Thinking of this, she immediately called Bai Jiao. "Dean Bai, let me tell you, Shihao and I have decided to divorce. We are going through the divorce procedures." "I understand. I'll deal with it. Mrs. Lin, I'm very sorry that things have come to this." Isiki smirked and said calmly, "I'm no longer Mrs. Lin. Your daughter will become the new Mrs. Lin." Bai Jiao paused. "I'm sorry." Her tone was very calm. "There's no need to apologize. I just hope that you will keep your promise and not embarrass him anymore." "I will." Lin Shihao stood outside the glass door and stared at her back. He saw her sitting there in a daze for a long time. He saw her making a call. He saw her putting her phone away and picking up her handbag to leave. He quickly hid behind the stone pillar. She walked to the side of the road and hailed a taxi. He quickly ran to his car and got in. His eyes followed the taxi closely. Isiki's original plan was to go through the divorce procedures in the morning and then take Nyonyo back to her parents' home to tell them about her divorce. Now that the divorce had not been finalized and she didn't want to waste this day of vacation, she decided to take the child back to her parents' home. The taxi drove her directly into the neighborhood and stopped under the building where she lived. "Thank you, sir." Isiki took the change from the driver and turned to go upstairs. She didn't notice Lin Shihao's car following her into the neighborhood. Isiki opened the door and saw Nyonyo hugging the stuffed bear and watching cartoons on the sofa. She smiled. "Nyonyo, we're going to Grandma's house today. Hurry up and get changed." Nyonyo replied with an, "Oh." She put the stuffed bear on the sofa and went back to her room to get changed. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Isiki looked through the peephole and her heart tightened. It was Lin Shihao. How did he find this place? "Honey, open the door. I know you're inside." When Lin Shihao walked into the corridor, he realized that the elevator had already gone up and stopped on the 5th floor. He guessed that Siki lived on the 5th floor. There were 2 families living on the 5th floor. He had already knocked on the door of the opposite house. There was an old lady living inside, so he concluded that Siki lived in this house. Isiki gritted her teeth. She decided to pretend that there was no one in the house and refused to open the door for him. Lin Shihao's heart was burning with anger. He was too lazy to press the doorbell. He knocked on the door loudly and shouted, "Yisiki, if you don't open the door for me, I'll keep knocking." Yisiki covered her ears with both hands and thought to herself, "I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. Mommy, is Daddy knocking on the door?" Nyonyo came out after changing her clothes. When she heard the knocking, a surprised smile immediately appeared on her little face. Yisiki's expression was very ugly. She shook her head and said, "No, Nyonyo, you heard wrong." Just as she finished speaking, Lin Shihao shouted again, "Yisiki, open the door for me." Nyonyo pouted and said, "It's obviously Daddy's voice. Mommy, why don't you open the door for Daddy?" Yisiki was very helpless. She didn't know how to answer her. "Nyonyo, you're inside, right? Daddy is here. Good girl, hurry up and open the door for Daddy." Since one path didn't work, Lin Shihao tried another. "Daddy, I'm here. I'll open the door for you right away." Nyonyo ran to the door excitedly. Yisiki hugged her waist and lifted her off the ground, preventing her from opening the door. Nyonyo struggled to move her little body, trying to struggle out of her embrace. However, her arms were wrapped tightly around her. Nyonyo was anxious and sad. She burst into tears and said, "Mommy, what are you doing? Why won't you open the door for Daddy? I miss Daddy so much. Mommy is bad. Mommy is a bad person." Nyonyo's tears kept falling. She wiped the tears on her face with the back of her soft hand, looking very pitiful. Yisiki's heart ached. The man outside was still shouting and yelling for her to open the door. She was annoyed and confused. In the end, she compromised with the father and daughter pair and opened the door with Nyonyo in her arms. As soon as the door opened, Nyonyo immediately stretched out her arms towards Lin Shihao and cried, "Daddy, I missed you so much." Lin Shihao didn't allow any explanation and snatched Nyonyo from Yisiki's arms. He hugged her tightly and kissed her cheek. "Nyonyo, be good. Daddy is here. Daddy missed you too." Nyonyo lay in his arms and cried sadly. She sobbed and said, "Daddy, don't divorce, okay? I don't want to be separated from you. We won't divorce. Daddy and Mommy will never divorce. Be good, Nyonyo. Don't cry anymore. You're making Daddy's heart ache." Lin Shihao carried his daughter to the living room and coaxed her gently. Yisiki closed the door. With her back facing the father and daughter pair, she secretly wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. Lin Shihao hugged his daughter and comforted her patiently. After making his daughter happy, he kissed her cheek and said gently, "Nyonyo, Daddy and Mommy have something to talk about. Go back to your room and do your homework first, okay?" "Okay." She smiled sweetly and kissed him back on the cheek. She jumped out of his arms and onto the floor and walked towards her room. Lin Shihao smiled as he watched her petite figure disappear into the distance. After walking for some distance, she suddenly turned around and stared at Yisiki with her big beautiful eyes. She puffed up her cheeks and said angrily, "Mommy, you can't chase Daddy out when I'm not paying attention." Yisiki pursed her lips helplessly. "I know. I won't." She grinned and smiled brightly. "Then I'm relieved. I'm going back to my room." Seeing her skipping back to her room, Yisiki and Lin Shihao felt very sad. 2 days ago their daughter was still Wu Yu's carefree little girl. But now she was so sensible that it made their heart ache. Yisiki poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of Lin Shihao. Then she sat across from him and pursed her lips, remaining silent. Lin Shihao's deep gaze fell on her body. He hadn't seen her for a day, but it felt like he hadn't seen her for a year. He missed her so much that his heart ached. Last night, he lay alone on the large bed that belonged to them and couldn't sleep the entire night. He hugged her pillow in his arms and it emitted a faint lemon scent. It was the scent of the shampoo they were used to using. There was also a faint scent of her on the quilt. He was surrounded by her scent, and his longing for her didn't lessen at all. Instead, he missed her even more. His burning gaze made her feel uncomfortable. She lowered her eyes and stroked the short hair by her ear, trying to say something to break the heavy atmosphere. "How did you know I live here?" She tucked her hair behind her ear, revealing her pink and small ears and half of her fair neck. His deep gaze followed her movements and became increasingly passionate. He clenched his fingers slightly and said in a deep voice, "I've been outside the Civil Affairs Bureau the entire time. I followed your taxi and found this place." Yisiki widened her eyes in surprise and looked up at him. "Since you're at the Civil Affairs Bureau, why didn't you come out to see me?" "Because I don't want to divorce you. Don't mention divorce again in the future." Lin Shihao's obsidian-like eyes surged with pain. His voice was low and slow with a hint of pleading, "Wifey, I know I've broken your heart. I also know you can't accept that child, but I love you. I I really can't leave you. Let's start over, okay? We're already done. There's no way to start over. Yi Siki gritted her teeth and forced herself to say something ruthless. Lin Shihao suddenly stood up. She was shocked and didn't know what he wanted to do. In the next second he was already sitting beside her and hugging her tightly in his arms. His voice was low. Wifey, let's leave a city and go somewhere else. We can definitely start over. She bitterly tugged at the corner of her lips. Can we leave? Our parents are all here and your career is also here. He hugged her even tighter. My career is far less important to me than you and Nyonyo. As for our parents, as long as we have the heart, we can take care of them no matter how far they are. Let's go to Sea City. That's where we went to university. Don't you like that city a lot? He described the future so beautifully that she was almost moved. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 435. He described the future to be so beautiful that she was almost moved. However, reality was reality. The difficulties in front of them were like an abyss. If they weren't careful, they would fall to the bottom and not even their bones would be left. She didn't want him to be punished by the law, nor did she want him to lose his reputation. She didn't even want to tell him the real reason for the divorce because she didn't want to hurt his pride. She leaned into his embrace and listened to his strong heartbeat. She slowly closed her eyes and said softly, "We can't go back. No matter where we go, we can't go back to the past. We haven't tried yet. How do you know we can't? Wife, give our feelings one more chance." His arm tightened around her waist. "I'm sorry. I have no choice." She bit her lip and said slowly, "I don't love you anymore." "You're lying. You clearly love me. You want to force me to divorce, so you're saying that on purpose." Lin Shihao suddenly held her shoulders and stared at her with his sharp eyes. "I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. I don't love you anymore." His eyes suddenly changed. Shock, pain like a sudden storm, shrouded him heavily. She looked at his sorrowful expression and her chest felt uncomfortable, but she calmly met his gaze. He slowly let go of her shoulders and leaned heavily against the sofa. He didn't speak for a long time. "Shihao, let's let go of each other." She wanted to touch his cold face with her fingers, but she restrained herself. "You want to leave me that badly?" His eyes were as dark as the sea and filled with pain. Yes. That simple and powerful word was like a sharp knife that stabbed into his heart. His face was ashen and his entire body emitted a cold and furious aura. He stared into her eyes and said word by word, "If you want me to let go, I'll have to die." He angrily slammed the door and left. If he stayed for a second longer, he might not be able to control himself and hurt her. Like a wild beast, he suddenly left. The door closed with a bang. She suddenly trembled. Her hands covered her cheeks, allowing her tears to flow through the gaps between her fingers. Nyonyo came out of the room and found out that Daddy had left. She cried and made a fuss. Yi Siki lied to her, saying that she and Lin Shihao would not divorce and that they were only living separately temporarily. It was not easy to make her daughter happy. According to the original plan, Yi Siki brought her daughter back to her parents' home. After sending her daughter away, she confessed to her parents about the impending divorce. Zhou Rongfang and Yi Weiliang were both shocked and upset. Zhou Rongfang advised her, "Siki, think about it again. Even if it's for Nyonyo, you can't make such a hasty decision." "Mom, I have no other choice. If I don't get a divorce, Bai Jiao will sue Shihao in court. I really can't watch him go to jail and be ridiculed by others." Despair raged between her eyebrows. Zhou Rongfang opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Yi Weiliang was silent for a moment and said in a low voice, "Have you asked for Shihao's opinion? He might not mind going to jail. It's precisely because he doesn't mind that I can't push him into the fire pit. Bai Jiao knew that we were preparing for a divorce, so he agreed to let Shihao go. I don't want to waste all my previous efforts." Zhou Rongfang wiped her tears. Yi Weiliang smoked non-stop. Ever since Nyonyo was born, he had quit smoking, saying that he didn't want his granddaughter to inhale his second-hand smoke. Now, because of his daughter's divorce, he felt terrible and took out the cigarettes that were meant for guests to smoke. Yi Siki didn't want them to be sad. Instead, she smiled and comforted them. She snatched the cigarette from Yi Weiliang's hand and threw it into the trash can. She said, "Dad, Mom, don't worry about me. I have a job now and a daughter. It's pretty good, really." Zhou Rongfang wiped her tears and forced herself to stop crying so that her daughter could be at ease. Yi Weiliang no longer pulled a long face and changed the topic. "Siki, it's going to be the new year in a few days. You and Nyo shouldn't stay outside. Just move back in. Yi Siki smiled. I think so too. We'll stay here tonight. Dad, Mom, I hope you don't mind us. Zhou Rongfang smiled reproachfully. You silly child, what are you saying? This is your home. You can stay here as long as you want. I can't wait for you and Nyo to stay with us every day. Mom, you're so nice. Yi Siki hugged her arm and leaned on her shoulder. You're already a mother. Why are you still acting like a child? Although it was a reproach, there was no reproach in her tone, only affection. This was what parents were like. When their child was sad, they wished that they could bear the pain for their child. Yi Siki stayed at home for dinner. In the afternoon, she went back to her rented apartment to pack her luggage and move back to her parents' house. Lin Shihao didn't know that she was moving. After work that night, he didn't go home. Instead, he drove directly to Siki's rented apartment. He knocked on the door for a long time but no one answered. He thought that Siki was playing the same trick again and pretended not to be home. He stood outside the door for more than an hour. The old lady of the house opposite suddenly opened the door and said, "Young man, don't wait here anymore. My daughter-in-law said that when she went out to sell vegetables this afternoon, she saw your wife carrying her luggage out." Siki went out? Where did she go? Was she avoiding him on purpose? Lin Shihao's heart ached. Did she really not care about him anymore? In the next few days, Yi Siki was very busy. However, every time she had a break, she would take time to contact Lin Shihao to persuade him to settle the divorce procedures. In the end, every time she called him, she would hear a notification saying that his phone was switched off. She felt very helpless. Fortunately, Bai Jiao didn't rush her. She had her own selfish motives and wanted to wait until after the Spring Festival to get a divorce. Even if they couldn't have a reunion dinner together, at least they would still be husband and wife. On the eve of the Spring Festival, Nyo woke up early in the morning and ran to the balcony to wait. Zhou Rongfang hurriedly called out to her, "Nyo, it's cold outside. Come in quickly. Don't catch a cold." "I'm not cold, Grandma. I want to wait here for my daddy." Nyo stood on a stool and leaned against the balcony. Zhou Rongfang trembled with fear as she watched. "Oh, my little princess, come down quickly. Look at how dangerous it is here." Zhou Rongfang carried her up and walked into the house. "Grandma, I want to wait for my daddy." Nyo kicked her short legs and muttered unhappily. "Let's sit at home and wait warmly. Don't be naughty. Be careful that your mommy gets angry." Zhou Rongfang brought up Yi Siki and Nyo immediately became obedient. Yu Weiliang held Nyo by his side. The grandfather and granddaughter pair sat on the sofa and watched TV. Zhou Rongfang went into the kitchen to help her daughter cook. She lowered her voice and said, "Nyo was making a fuss about waiting for her dad outside the balcony just now. Will her dad come today?" Yi Siki paused in her actions of washing the vegetables and smiled. "I don't think so. I haven't been able to contact him these past few days. By the way, Mom, big brother and sister-in-law should be here soon. You should wait in the living room. Leave this to me. They'll be here in a while. I'll do it with you. How can you handle it alone?" Zhou Rongfang rolled up her sleeves and put on an apron. The mother and daughter chatted and laughed as they busied themselves. Yi Siki's phone in her trouser pocket suddenly rang. She quickly wiped her hands and took out her phone. She didn't expect Jianghu to call. Pressing the answer button, Yi Siki felt a little awkward. She didn't know how to address her. Just as she was hesitating, Jianghu's urgent voice came through. "Siki, come to the hospital quickly. Shihao has fallen ill." Yi Siki's heart skipped a beat. She tried her best to sound calm. "How did he fall ill?" Jianghu sighed. "I don't know what's gotten into him recently. He works from morning to night every day and refuses to eat. Even if his body is made of iron, it can't take it. Today the hospital called and said that he fainted in the office." Yi Siki's face turned pale. "He worked so hard. Did he want to die?" "He woke up in the afternoon but still refused to eat. We had no choice but to give him an 4 drip." Jianghu paused and said, "Siki, I think you're the only one who can persuade him now." Her heart ached, but she didn't agree. It wasn't easy for her to make up her mind to cut off their relationship as husband and wife. If she went to the hospital to see him this time, she was afraid that she would waver. "Siki, I know it's very difficult for you to come over to see Shihao, but I really have no other choice. You didn't see it. Shihao is now all skin and bones." Jianghu choked with sobs. Yi Siki imagined him lying on the hospital bed and being given an 4 drip. Her eyes stung. After hesitating for a long time, she said softly, "Okay, I'll go over." After ending the call, her eyes were red. Zhou Rongfang, who was standing beside her, guessed what was going on. She sighed and said, Shihao is ill? You should go and see him. After all, you were husband and wife. Mom, I'll go then. Don't tell Nyonyo. Yi Siki took off her apron. Okay, go quickly. Zhou Rongfang waved her hand. When Yi Siki walked to the door, she suddenly called out, Siki, wait. Mom, what's wrong? The chicken soup is ready. Give Shihao a bowl. Zhou Rongfang quickly took out a thermos and washed it. Then she filled it with chicken soup, closed the lid and handed it to Siki. Go. The hospital was very deserted. Most of the medical staff had gone home for the new year, leaving only a few staff members on duty. Yi Siki carried the thermos and walked down the empty corridor. Her heart was slightly bleak. Standing at the door of Lin Shihao's ward, she saw Bai Meiwei sitting by his bed, holding a bowl of millet porridge in her hand. She gently urged him to eat. His eyes were closed as if he was asleep. Yi Siki really wanted to leave, but she couldn't bear to. She saw that Lin Shihao had a tube in the back of his hand. His face was pale and there was stubble on his chin. He looked extremely haggard. She pursed her lips and deliberately walked into the ward with heavy footsteps. Bai Meiwei turned around. When she saw that it was her, her expression turned a little ugly. She supported her slightly protruding belly and stood up. She said to the man lying on the hospital bed, Shihao, Miss Yi has come to see you. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 436. Lin Shihao suddenly opened his eyes. When he saw Yi Siki, his eyes were filled with complex emotions. Shock, pain, ecstasy, and finally all of his emotions turned into coldness. He looked at her coldly and said, Are you here to see if I'm dead? Sorry to disappoint you. He had said before that if he wanted a divorce he would have to die. Since he wasn't dead, he wouldn't agree to a divorce with her. Yi Siki's face turned pale. Only the heavens knew how much the cold words that came out of his mouth hurt her. Bai Meiwei was delighted. She thought that Lin Shihao was cold to Yi Siki because he hated her and wanted to cut ties with her. Her expression didn't look so bad, and her smile became more sincere. She said gently, Shihao, don't be like this. Miss Yi came to see you out of goodwill. You're hurting her heart by saying that. Lin Shihao sneered, Heart? Yi Siki, do you still have a heart? His deep, dark eyes were filled with coldness. It was so cold that it made her heart tremble. She suddenly clenched her fists and walked unhurriedly to the bedside. She placed the thermos in her hand on the bedside table and said calmly, Since you still want to live, don't torture yourself anymore. After saying this, she turned to leave. Lin Shihao's eyes flashed. He glanced at the thermos and shouted, Stop right there. Yi Siki froze. She slowly turned around, her gaze calm. What's the matter? Lin Shihao didn't answer. He turned his gaze to Bai Meiwei and said coldly, Get out. I have something to say to my wife. Bai Meiwei's face was drained of blood, and her lips trembled slightly. Get out, he shouted sternly with a dark expression. Bai Meiwei's body trembled. She bit her lip and looked like she was about to cry. However, Lin Shihao only felt disgust for her. He didn't hide his disgust at all. He frowned and said coldly, Don't you understand what I'm saying? I told you to get out. Yi Siki felt that she had become evil. When she saw Lin Shihao shouting at Bai Meiwei, she was very happy. She lowered her eyes and stared at her toes, pretending not to hear anything. Shihao, what are you doing? Jianghu figure appeared at the door. She had just gone to the bathroom, and when she came back, she bumped into her son reprimanding Bai Meiwei. She couldn't help but speak up for Bai Meiwei. When she heard that you were sick, Meiwei immediately rushed over from home and personally cooked porridge for you. Mom? Lin Shihao interrupted her unhappily. You and Bai Meiwei can go out first. I have something to talk to Siki about. Jianghu anger was stuck in her chest, but then she remembered that her son was sick in bed, so she didn't argue with him. She smiled at Yi Siki and said, Siki, Shihao hasn't eaten for many days. You should persuade him to eat something. Yi Siki smiled faintly and said, Okay, I got it. Thank you for your hard work. Jianghu smiled satisfactorily and then looked at Bai Meiwei. Meiwei, let's go out first. When Bai Meiwei left, she looked deeply at Lin Shihao. It was a pity that he was so focused on Yi Siki that he didn't notice her flirtatious gaze. The ward was very quiet. Yi Siki sat by his bed and unscrewed the lid of the thermos. She scooped the chicken soup into a bowl and brought it to his mouth. She ordered matter-of-factly, Open your mouth. Lin Shihao stared at her calm face and gritted his teeth hatefully. Since you don't want me anymore, Why do you still care if I live or die? She lifted her eyelids and looked at him indifferently. You don't want me to care about you? Okay, then I'll leave now. She placed the bowl of soup on the bedside table and made a move to get up. A hand grabbed her wrist and with a sudden tug she was pulled into his embrace. His arm was like an iron clamp, tightly holding her against his chest. As she leaned against his chest, she realized that he had lost a lot of weight during this period. His bones hurt her face. Her eyes welled up with tears and she gritted her teeth and said, "Let go." "I won't let go. If I let go, you'll leave. I won't allow you to leave." He was like a rascal. Even his tone was very similar. "Lin Shihao, why are you so childish?" She felt helpless. She wanted to push him away forcefully, but she was afraid of hurting him. He hugged her even tighter and said in an extremely awkward tone, "I'm childish. Tell me, are you still worried about me?" She held her breath and said slowly, "Don't misunderstand. Your mother asked me to come and see you." His eyes narrowed dangerously. "So you didn't want to come at all?" She replied. He raised his voice and tried to suppress his emotions. "Since you don't care about me, why did you make chicken soup for me?" She said softly, "My mother asked me to bring it over." "Shihao, don't be so childish in the future. Don't torture yourself anymore. Even if I'm not worried, the elders will be." She lowered her head and he couldn't see the pain in her eyes. He buried his head in her neck and greedily breathed in her fragrance. His voice was hoarse and low. "Wifey, do you think I did this on purpose so that you would sympathize with me and care about me?" His hot breath sprayed on her skin. It was numb and she couldn't help but tremble. He paused for a moment before continuing, "That's not it. I worked day and night because I wanted to numb myself with work so that I wouldn't have to think about you. I didn't eat because every time I saw the food I would think of the food you personally cooked for me. Without you by my side I can't sleep at night. I can't taste my food, so I decided not to sleep or eat." Yisiki's eyes were misty with tears. She held back her tears for a long time and forced them back. She said softly, "I'm here now. Let's eat." If he didn't eat, his body wouldn't be able to take it anymore. She reached out for the bowl of soup. This time he didn't stop her. He adjusted his position slightly and hugged her waist with both hands. The two of them were sitting face to face. She handed the bowl of soup to him. "Drink it yourself. I want you to feed me." His hands were still hugging her waist and his tone was extremely awkward. Yisiki sighed silently. Who asked him to be sick? Let him be. She scooped a spoonful of soup and brought it to his mouth. He opened his mouth Gigai, and his burning gaze landed on her. She pretended not to know anything and lowered her eyes to feed him the soup mechanically. After feeding him the soup, she fed him half a bowl of millet porridge. Then she took a tissue and wiped his mouth. "Rest for a while." She tried to pull the pillow from behind him, but he held her hand tightly and said in a low voice, "Stay with me." She pursed her lips. "Dad, Mom, and Nyonyo are all waiting for me at home. There are already many of them. I'm the only one here." His tone was so bleak. "How can you be the only one here? Your mom and Bai Meiwei are both here." He curled his lips mockingly. "With them here, I'd rather be alone." During this period of time, his mother had spared no effort in matchmaking him and Bai Meiwei. How could he not see that the reason why she had accepted Bai Meiwei was largely because of the son in her stomach? He was very disappointed. She had never seen the loneliness and sadness in his eyes before. Her heart felt very uncomfortable. She couldn't bear to leave him alone and go home for the reunion dinner. "Go to sleep." She patted the back of his hand discreetly, implying that she would stay. He broke into a bright smile. "Wifey, I knew you couldn't bear to leave me." She snorted in annoyance. "Go to sleep or I'll leave." Okay. I'll sleep right away. Don't leave." He held her hand tightly and lay down on the bed obediently. He was indeed exhausted. Once he relaxed, he fell asleep as soon as he closed his eyes. Isiki sat by the bed and looked at his sleeping face. She smiled bitterly. Her slender fingers gently stroked his brows as she whispered, "Hubby, I missed you so much." When Lin Shihao woke up, it was already evening. Her hand was still in his. He turned his head and saw Yisiki glaring at him impatiently. "You're finally awake. Let go of my hand." This man was afraid that she would run away. He was already fast asleep, but he still held her hand tightly. She couldn't go anywhere or do anything. She could only sit by his bed. Jianghu brought her lunch in the afternoon. She could only use one hand to barely fill her stomach. That was fine, but the most troublesome thing was that she had to hold it in. He was slightly stunned, as if he couldn't believe that she was still here. Yi frown deepened. Her voice was urgent. Why are you in a daze? Let go of my hand. I need to go to the bathroom. He actually laughed. The force on her wrist disappeared. Yi glared at him and ran into the bathroom at lightning speed. Although the bathroom door was closed, it didn't stop her from hearing his joyful laughter. Yi couldn't help but roll her eyes. Who caused her to be in such a sorry state? The culprit actually dared to laugh at her. How dare he? Lin Shihao had rested well and recovered some of his energy. He got out of bed, washed up, shaved, and changed into a new set of clothes. The gentle and handsome man of the past was back. After he was done, he smiled gently. Honey, let's go home. Yi anger was stuck in her throat. You haven't recovered yet. Rest for another night before you leave the hospital. His smile became even gentler. I'm fine now. Today is the reunion night. Of course, I have to spend it with my family. He lifted 2 bags with one hand. They were filled with his clothes and daily necessities. He held her hand with the other hand. Honey, let's go home. She shook her head. I can't go home with you. I want to go back to my mother's place. Okay, then let's go to your mother's place. Shihao, she wanted to say something, but he stopped her with one sentence. Honey, I miss Nyonyo. Nyonyo missed him very much too. She had been looking forward to seeing him since the morning. She didn't want to disappoint her daughter. Yi and Lin Shihao appeared at the same time. The Yi family was stunned. Yi eldest brother Yi Shuyao reacted quickly. He smiled and said, Speak of the devil. I was just about to call to ask when you guys would be back. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 437. Lin Shihao greeted his family members with a smile. His brother and sister-in-law all smiled in response. Yi Weiliang gave him face and invited him to sit down with a smile. Nyonyo pounced on him and hugged his leg affectionately. Zhou Rongfang heard the noise and came out of the kitchen with an apron. She smiled and said, Shihao, you're here. Sit down and rest. Dinner will be ready soon. Siki, come and help me in the kitchen. Yi sighed and quickly walked into the kitchen. As Zhou Rongfang busied herself, she lowered her voice and asked, How is he? He's fine now. That's good. Nyonyo and Yi Shuyao's son, Tong Tong, had a good relationship. The 2 children sat next to each other and would whisper and laugh from time to time. Even the atmosphere at the dinner table became lively. Everyone in the Yi family knew about Lin Shihao and Yi Siki's divorce, but no one mentioned it. They only talked about happy things. After dinner, everyone gathered to watch the New Year's gala. It was very lively. Lin Shihao's cell phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID and walked out to the balcony to answer the call. Mom, have you eaten? You still know that I'm your mother. Jianghu was very angry. Since you've been discharged, why didn't you go home? Why did you go to someone else's house for the new year and leave me alone at home? What's going on? Lin Shihao frowned. Mom, what do you mean by someone else's house? I'm at my in-laws' house. We used to spend the new year with you. This is the first time I'm spending the new year with my in-laws. Why are you jealous? I'm not jealous. I'm angry. Since you're divorced, you should break up cleanly. Otherwise, if the Bai family finds out, who knows what trouble they'll cause. Lin Shihao frowned even more and said stiffly, Mom, I've said many times that I won't agree to the divorce. Siki and I are still husband and wife. I don't care about the Bai family or the He family. I like to spend the new year at my wife's house. No one can stop me. Jiang was so angry that she couldn't speak for a long time. Why couldn't her son understand her painstaking efforts? Mom, that's it. I'll go back tomorrow. He paused and added, Mom, Happy New Year's Eve. He still felt guilty about leaving her alone at home. As soon as the call ended, another call came in. When Lin Shihao saw the 3 words by Mei Wei, he didn't even think about it and immediately turned off the phone. On this kind of family reunion day, he really didn't want to have anything to do with her. When he returned to the living room, Yi Siki was playing with her phone. It looked like she was texting someone. He really wanted to go over and see who she was talking to, but he couldn't make it too obvious. He quietly moved his butt closer to her, then stretched his neck and secretly peeked. Xiao Tiancheng, silly girl, I wish you and little Nyonyo a happy spring festival. Yi Siki, happy Chinese New Year to you too. Xiao Tiancheng, what are you doing? Yi Siki, watching TV. What about you? Xiao Tianxing, you're being scolded by my old man. Poor thing. Yi Siki sent a sweaty emoji. Xiao Tianxing replied with a grinning emoji. Lin Shihao watched the conversation between her and Xiao Tianxing. His heart felt like it was soaked in a vat of vinegar. He stiffly retracted his head and sat upright. He pretended not to have seen anything and nudged Siki's arm. "Honey, Happy New Year." Yi Siki looked up at him in surprise. All these years, whenever they celebrated the New Year together, he would never say Happy New Year's to her. He coughed and insisted, "Honey, Happy New Year's?" She replied strangely, "Happy New Year's." He smiled happily. Then he looked at the phone in her hand and lectured her like a parent. "Don't play with your phone. Everyone is watching TV. You have to respect everyone." Yi Siki's mouth twitched. She didn't know what was wrong with him. She said, "Oh." Then she lowered her head and quickly replied to Xiao Tianxing, "I can't chat anymore. Someone has something to say." Xiao Tianxing quickly replied, "Your husband?" When Yi Siki heard the text, she was too embarrassed to reply under Lin Shihao's intense gaze. She put the phone back into her pocket. At midnight, after watching the fireworks, Nyonyo complained that she was sleepy. Yi Siki took her back to her old room to rest. Lin Shihao chatted with his brother-in-law and father-in-law for a while, then he went back to his room to sleep. There weren't enough bedrooms at home, so Lin Shihao still shared a room with Yi Siki. When he returned to his room, Yi Siki had already fallen asleep with Nyonyo in her arms. Nyonyo slept between the two of them. Lin Shihao reached out and hugged the mother and daughter in his arms. His tense nerves completely relaxed and he quickly fell asleep. When Yi Siki woke up the next day, she found herself in Lin Shihao's arms. She was shocked. She remembered that she deliberately let Nyonyo sleep in the middle last night to separate herself from Lin Shihao. Why was she in his arms when she woke up? Where was Nyonyo? She turned her head and looked around. Even though it was a small movement, it still woke Lin Shihao up. There was a faint smile in his obsidian-like eyes. He hugged her even tighter and his voice was hoarse in the morning. "Honey, what are you looking for?" She pushed his chest and tried to retreat. "Where's Nyonyo? Why is she gone?" He lowered his head and rubbed his chin against her soft hair. He chuckled softly. "Nyonyo woke up a long time ago. She went out to play with Tong Tong. Honey, I haven't hugged you to sleep like this in a long time." They had only been apart for less than half a month, but he felt that it had been as long as a year. His hand quietly reached under her clothes and slowly moved up, caressing her smooth and tender skin inch by inch. His body was pressed tightly against hers, and the scorching heat from his body was like a soldering iron. She couldn't help but tremble slightly. Her cheeks were burning and she whispered, "Shihao, don't be like this. Let go of me, honey, I missed you." His voice was hoarse and magnetic. It was extremely sexy. His warm breath sprayed on her skin, and he gently bit her small earlobe. Her body suddenly tensed up and she struggled with all her might. Her voice was frantic. "Lin Shihao, let go of me." They had been married for so many years. How could she not know that this was a sign that he was aroused? He didn't let go but hugged her even tighter. His head slowly lowered and he bit her shoulder gently. He supported her back with one hand and covered her soft snowy peaks with the other, kneading gently. His heavy breathing sounded in her ears. A hard and hot thing was pressed against her abdomen. She was embarrassed and angry and she hit his chest, almost crying. "I told you to let go. You bastard, you only know how to bully me." They were about to get a divorce. How could he treat her like this? Her eyes were glistening. Lin Shihao's dark eyes suddenly narrowed, and he stopped what he was doing. He buried his head in her shoulder and breathed heavily. "Don't cry." He suppressed the desire in his heart with difficulty and kissed the corner of her moist eyes gently. "You bastard." She hit him on the shoulder and whimpered softly. "I'm a bastard," he admitted honestly. "I hate you." "Yeah, you hate me, you pervert." He laughed bitterly. "Wifey, do I have to admit this too?" Yi Siki couldn't help but want to laugh, but she immediately put on a straight face and said fiercely, "You have to admit it." "Okay, I'm a pervert." He stroked her hair good-naturedly and said gently, "Are you not angry anymore?" She glared at him. "Let go of me. I'm going to get up." Okay. Although he couldn't bear to, he still obediently let go of her. Yi Siki was afraid that he would suddenly change his mind, so she quickly got out of his arms and jumped off the bed. She said angrily, "I'm going to change. Close your eyes. Don't peek." "Okay, I'll close my eyes." His voice was full of laughter and indulgence, and it made her heart tremble. Yi Siki changed her clothes and turned around. She realized that a certain man really had his eyes closed. There was even a faint smile on his thin lips, and he looked extremely handsome. She said that she didn't love him anymore. It was all a lie. Just a look or a smile from him could make her depressed mood soar. Yet she had to endure it and not let him find out. Isiki felt that her life was very tiring. She forced herself to look away and walked straight to the door. When Lin Shihao opened his eyes, she had just opened the door and disappeared outside. He was like a child who had succeeded in his prank, and a bright smile appeared on his lips. Isiki felt that it was very strange. During dinner, everyone looked at her strangely. Her sister-in-law blushed and glanced at her several times, as if she wanted to say something but was too embarrassed to say it. Her mother's expression was also very strange. Her eyes kept moving around her neck. "Mommy, what's wrong with your neck? It's red. It looks like you were bitten by a mosquito. But there aren't any mosquitoes now." Nyonyo blinked her large eyes and stared innocently at her neck. Isiki suddenly thought of something and her mind went blank. Neck. Red. It must have been left behind by Lin Shihao, that jerk. Her face was boiling hot. She lowered her head in embarrassment and shrunk her neck. Just as she was about to say something to save her face, Lin Shihao smiled and said, "Nyonyo, your mommy wasn't bitten by a mosquito. It's just an allergic reaction and a rash. But it's okay. It'll get better soon." "Oh, so that's what happened. Mommy, does it hurt?" Isiki smiled awkwardly. "It doesn't hurt. It'll go away soon." Zhou Rongfang coughed and changed the topic. She mentioned that a certain child of Siki's 7 aunts was getting married after the new year. Yishuyao agreed and said that the child used to snatch toys from him when they were young. The awkward atmosphere livened up again. After dinner, Isiki went back to her room and looked in the mirror. She realized that there was a hickey on the right side of her neck. Because it was closer to the back, she didn't notice it when she was changing her clothes. She found a scarf and tied it around her neck to cover the hickey. Just as she was about to leave the room, Lin Shihao pushed the door open and came in. Seeing that she was wearing a scarf, his lips curled into a meaningful smile. Isiki's face was fierce. "You did it on purpose." He laughed softly and admitted readily, "I did it on purpose." He wanted to use this method to tell her family that he loved her very much and that they were still husband and wife. Welfare Xingwu 799. Chapter 438. During the Spring Festival, Lin Shihao spent almost all of his time at the Yi residence. He claimed that he was there to accompany his daughter, but in reality he was trying to get his wife back. Yi Weiliang and Zhou Rongfang knew that they were about to get a divorce, but they were still pestering them. At first they were a little unhappy, but when they saw how happy Lin Shihao and Nyonyo were, they didn't say anything. As for Isiki, she could tolerate him wandering around in front of her during the day, but every night, he would squeeze into the same bed with her, which made her tremble with fear. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to control herself and would be seduced by him and something would go wrong. Fortunately, the holidays weren't long. After a week, Lin Shihao went back to work at the hospital, and Isiki moved back to the apartment he rented with Nyonyo. When Lin Shihao got off work at night and returned to his empty home, there was no one to smile at him and say, "Honey, you're back." No one to bring him a hot meal, and no one to laugh and talk about the interesting things of the day. He sat alone on the sofa and turned on the lights in the room. The volume of the TV was very loud, and he wanted to drive away the loneliness in his heart, but his heart was still empty. Suddenly the doorbell rang. He was shocked. Thinking that Siki had returned, he quickly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. His brows furrowed tightly. Jianghu and Bai Meiwei were standing at the door with 2 large suitcases by their feet. Lin Shihao opened the door. "Mom, it's so late. Why are you here?" "I wanted to come over during the day but you weren't home during the day." Jiang Rulin pulled the 2 suitcases in front of him and said bluntly, "Shihao, help us bring the suitcases in." Then, without waiting for Lin Shihao's reaction, she pulled Bai Meiwei's hand and led her into the room. Lin Shihao didn't care about the suitcases. The door was open and he strode past them to block their way. He looked unhappy. "Mom, what are you doing?" Jiang Rulin looked at him calmly. "You're a big man. How can you live without someone to take care of you? From today onwards, Meiwei and I will move in and take care of your daily needs." Lin Shihao frowned and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He suppressed his anger and said, "Mom, is it appropriate for you to let an outsider move into our house?" Bai Meiwei's face paled and she subconsciously tightened her grip on Jiang Rulin's hand. Jiang Rulin patted the back of her hand comfortingly and glared angrily at Lin Shihao. "How is Meiwei an outsider? She's now my future daughter-in-law and your son's mother. She can't work in the hospital in her current state, so I asked her to move in and take care of her. Lin Shihao's entire body suddenly exploded with cold anger. He suppressed his anger and shouted at her, "Mom, get this straight. Siki and I haven't divorced yet. Siki is your daughter-in-law. How can there be a mother-in-law like you? Don't go overboard." Jiang Rulin said angrily, "I'm going overboard? Who am I doing this for? It's all because of you." Lin Shihao clenched his fists and the veins on his forehead throbbed. "If you're really doing this for my sake, then don't interfere with my matters with Siki. You're my son. What's wrong with me interfering with your matters?" Jiang Rulin said angrily. "Mei Wei and I are moving here anyway. If you don't help me carry my luggage, fine, it's fine. I'll carry it myself." Bai Mei Wei's face paled and she forced a smile. "Auntie Jiang, since Shihao doesn't welcome us, let's leave. Since you're already here, there's no reason for you to leave. You can stay here at ease." Jiang Rulin held her hand and didn't even look at Lin Shihao's livid face. She rushed to the door and dragged the luggage in and slammed the door shut. They had already entered and one of them was his mother. There was no way to chase them away, but at the very least he had to keep his bottom line. Jiang Rulin wanted to put Bai Mei Wei's luggage in his and Siki's master bedroom, but he quickly locked the door and blocked it. With a cold face he said, "Move her things to the guest room." Jiang Rulin didn't insist. She led Bai Mei Wei to the guest room while she stayed in another guest room. It was a night that made people irritable. Lin Shihao changed into his home clothes. His brows were tightly knitted as he leaned against the headboard and read a book. He couldn't take in a single word of the book. His ears were filled with the laughter and chatter of the two women outside. One was his mother, and the other was the woman who caused his family to break apart. They sat in the living room and chatted while watching a melodramatic TV series about wealthy families. He couldn't calm down at all. He simply threw the book on the bedside table and closed his eyes to rest. However, he couldn't sleep and his mind was in a mess. He picked up his phone and sent a message to Siki. After editing a few messages, he felt unsatisfied and deleted them. Finally, he sent a few simple words. "Honey, is Nyonyo asleep?" When Siki saw this message, she didn't intend to reply. However, he didn't ask her how she was but asked about their daughter instead. It seemed like there was no reason not to reply to him. She hesitated for a moment before replying, "She's already asleep." Lin Shihao held his phone and waited for her reply. After waiting for a few minutes, he still didn't get a reply. He was very depressed. Suddenly, his phone beeped and he quickly opened the message. Even though it was a simple message, he was so happy that the corners of his mouth curled up. He quickly sent another message. "Did Nyonyo miss me today?" Siki was a little annoyed. "This man must be doing this on purpose." She replied slowly, "How would I know? I'm going to sleep. I'm ignoring you." When Lin Shihao saw this message, his deep eyes were full of smiles. He could imagine her glaring at him coquettishly. Her tone was clearly angry, but in his eyes, it became coquettish words. He chuckled softly and replied, "Go to sleep. Cover yourself with a blanket. It's best if you can dream of me." As expected, she didn't reply to him. Although he felt a little disappointed, his heart was still overflowing with warmth. She wasn't like what she said. She didn't love him anymore. She still cared about him. He was going to pursue her relentlessly. The next morning, Lin Shihao washed up and changed his clothes. When he came out of the bedroom, he saw a figure busy in the kitchen. He vaguely thought that Siki had returned. His heart tightened and he almost rushed over. The figure suddenly turned around and smiled gently at him. "Shihao, good morning. Take a seat first. Breakfast will be ready soon." So it was Bai Mei Wei. Lin Shihao's boiling heart gradually turned cold. He said lightly, "I'm not eating." He turned around and locked the bedroom door with the key. His intention was obvious. He didn't want anyone to enter the room. The smile on Bai Mei Wei's face froze. He didn't look at her and walked towards the door with his bag in hand. She hurried over and grabbed his arm. He turned around unhappily, his sharp gaze fixed on her hand. She calmly retracted her hand and smiled faintly. "Shihao, it's not good for your health to skip breakfast. I've already made breakfast. Eat a little before you leave." He said coldly, "No need. I'm not used to other people's cooking." With a bang, the door slammed shut and his figure disappeared. Bai Mei Wei stood there in a daze. After a long time, she smiled darkly. That smile made people shudder. Lin Shihao took the afternoon off. When he opened the door with the key, there was no one in the house. Bai Mei Wei and his mother had gone out. It was good that they weren't at home. It would prevent another dispute. He found a suitcase from the closet and stuffed his clothes and daily necessities into it. Then he locked the door and went downstairs with the suitcase. He put the suitcase in the trunk of the car and drove to Yisiki's neighborhood. Xiao Tianxing held Nyonyo's little hand while Yisiki carried Nyonyo's school bag. The three of them came out of the elevator together. Their laughter echoed in the corridor like a happy family of three. Yisiki took out the key and opened the door. She smiled and said, "Thank you for sending us back. Do you want to come in and sit for a while?" Xiao Tianxing glanced at Nyonyo, who was happily running into her room. He raised his eyebrows and said, "If you don't mind, I'd like to stay for dinner." Yisiki looked a little embarrassed. That's not very good. They were a man and a woman alone. No matter what, they should avoid arousing suspicion. Xiao Tianxing looked aggrieved. "Why are you so petty? Isn't it just a meal from you? At most, I'll treat you to a meal another day. My servants are on holiday today. No one will cook for me when I get home." He sounded so pitiful that Yisiki couldn't help but sympathize with him. She hesitated for a moment and said, "All right then. But I can't promise that it'll be a sumptuous meal. We'll eat whatever is in the fridge." "No problem. I'm not picky at all." He grinned and almost patted his chest to make a promise. Yisiki changed her clothes, put on an apron, and went into the kitchen to cook. Xiao Tianxing leaned against the kitchen door and watched for a while before she chased him away. "I'm nervous with you standing here. Go to the living room and watch TV." Xiao Tianxing laughed. He didn't sit in the living room and watch TV. Instead, he ran to Nyonyo's room and helped her with her homework. Yisiki was busy in the kitchen when the doorbell suddenly rang. She couldn't free her hands to open the door, so she stuck her head out and shouted, "Nyonyo, help mommy open the door and see who's here." She didn't expect Xiao Tianxing to come running out. He walked straight to the door and opened it without looking at who it was. The person outside and the person inside were stunned at the same time. Lin Shihao was wearing a coat and holding a box of cake in his hand. His tall and straight figure stood at the door. His handsome face was expressionless and his eyes were cold. He said calmly, "Mr. Xiao, why are you here?" Xiao Tianxing crossed his arms leisurely and chuckled. "I should be the one asking you that. Mr. Lin, why are you here?" The two men were equally outstanding. One stood at the door while the other stood outside. One stood proudly while the other was wild and unruly. Neither side gave in to the other and fought with their eyes. "Who is it?" Yisiki put the food on a plate, turned off the gas, wiped her hands and came out of the kitchen. The two men's eyes fell on her at the same time. When she saw the situation clearly, she felt like she was struck by lightning. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 439. Who could tell her what was going on? Why did she have a bad premonition that she had been caught red-handed when she looked at Lin Shihao's cold eyes? Yisiki coughed and forced a smile. Shihao, why are you here?" Lin Shihao couldn't wait to throw Xiao Tianxing out and hug the little woman who was looking at him timidly in his arms. He clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "I'm not only here as a husband but also as a neighbor. May I ask why Mr. Xiao is here?" Xiao Tianxing smiled innocently. "I'm here as a friend, of course. I'm here to have dinner with Siki and Nyonyo. Can't I do that?" Yisiki quickly explained, "Tianxing sent Nyonyo and me home today. I'm treating him to dinner to show my gratitude." Xiao Tianxing looked a little unhappy. Was this woman so worried that Lin Shihao would misunderstand? "I haven't had dinner either." His meaning was obvious. He was going to freeload this meal. His face was dark. Without waiting for the host to greet him, he changed his shoes and walked in as if he had returned to his own home. Yisiki couldn't say anything in front of outsiders. She forced a smile and said, "The food is ready. Let's eat." Lin Shihao replied with an "N" and placed the cake on the coffee table. Then he went to Nyonyo's room to call her to eat. When Nyonyo saw that her father had come, she was extremely excited. She hugged his neck and kissed his face twice. The atmosphere at the dinner table was a little strange. As usual, Lin Shihao was a good husband and father. He picked up food for Siki and deboned fish for his daughter. He clearly drew a line on the table. On one side was the family of three, and on the other was Xiao Tianxing. Xiao Tianxing looked at them happily and couldn't help but feel a little bitter. Yisiki was very considerate of his feelings. She smiled and told him to eat more as it was good for his health. "Mr. Xiao, don't stand on ceremony. More." Lin Shihao acted like a male host. Xiao Tianxing smiled. "Mr. Lin, you don't have to be so polite." He casually reminded him that he was just a guest. Seeing that the two of them were about to start arguing again, Yisiki quickly changed the topic. By the way, Shihao, you said that you're my neighbor. What do you mean? Lin Shihao scooped half a bowl of soup for his daughter and smiled gently. From today onwards, I've moved upstairs. From now on we'll be neighbors. Isiki was stunned. Why don't you stay at home? Wouldn't it be troublesome to move out? Lin Shihao looked at her and smiled meaningfully. I'll follow you wherever you go. Isiki's fingers trembled. She wanted to say something, but because Xiao Tianxing was present, she swallowed her words. Nyo clapped happily. That's great. Daddy lives upstairs. He can eat with us every day from now on. Yeah, Daddy will take you to and from school from now on. You don't have to trouble your Uncle Xiao. Lin Shihao emphasized the word, uncle, as if he was reminding someone. Xiao Tianxing's smile did not change, but his words were especially sharp. Some things can't be changed just because you're close. Oh, what's that idiom again? Alright, so close yet worlds apart. That's what it means. Lin Shihao smiled faintly. I also know that there's a saying, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Since you have the heart, there's nothing you can't do. I think there's another saying, bedfellows dream different dreams. Xiao Tianxing's lips curved into a cold smile. Lin Shihao smiled and said faintly, Mr. Xiao is so knowledgeable. You must have heard of the saying, love is stronger than gold. The two of them opposed each other with equal harshness. Nyo looked from one to the other. She puffed up her cheeks as if she understood. Isiki slammed her chopsticks on the table. If you want to continue playing word games, I won't keep you company. Xiao Tianxing coughed and said, word games are boring. We won't play anymore. Isiki snorted and picked up her chopsticks again. I see that you're having fun. How is it boring? Lin Shihao picked up a piece of pork rib and placed it in her bowl. He chuckled softly. Don't be angry. When they finally finished eating, Isiki cleared the dishes and went into the kitchen as if she was escaping. Lin Shihao wanted to go in and help her, but she chased him out. Xiao Tianxing played with Nyo for a while. When Isiki finished cleaning up the kitchen, he said goodbye and left. Isiki walked him to the door. He glanced at Lin Shihao, who came out with her. The two of them stood side by side and looked very compatible. He felt a little upset. He smiled and said, I'm leaving. Good night. Be careful on your way back. Good night. Isiki smiled and waved. It was already past 9, but Lin Shihao had no intention of leaving. He hugged Nyo and curled up on the sofa to play games. Isiki couldn't help but say, it's getting late. Shouldn't you go home? Lin Shihao lifted his wrist to look at his watch. He smiled and said, I almost forgot the time. Nyo, it's time to sleep. Come, Daddy will carry you back to your room. No need. I'm already a big girl. I'll go back by myself. Daddy, Mommy, good night. Nyo jumped out of his arms and waved her chubby little hand. She ran back to her room like a little cannonball, as if she was deliberately leaving them some alone space. In the large space, only the two of them were left. His handsome figure stood in front of her and walked closer to her step by step. She could smell danger in the air and instinctively stepped back. Suddenly, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist. His dark eyes stared into her eyes. His thin lips moved slightly. Does he come here often? Who? She played dumb. He looked slightly annoyed. You know who I'm talking about. Her expression was calm. Not very often. He's only come here twice. The first time was when we first moved here. Today is the second time. His face darkened and his eyes narrowed dangerously. You think 2 times is too little? Isiki pushed his arm away angrily. What are you doing? I only treat him as a normal friend. I see that you're very free. Let's find some time tomorrow to settle the divorce procedures. Lin Shihao's eyes narrowed and a surge of anger rushed to his heart. Just as he was about to say something, his cell phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. As soon as the call connected, Jiang Rulin's unhappy voice was heard. Shihao, it's so late. Why aren't you home yet? Mom, I've moved out. Jiang Rulin said angrily, Are you crazy? You're living well in your own home. Why do you have to move out? Lin Shihao frowned and said coldly, I am crazy. I've been crazy since the day you forced me to divorce Siki. My own home? Humph, you're moving in with an outsider. Is that still my own home? Mom, as long as Siki doesn't go back, I won't move back either. You can stay as long as you want. I won't care about you anymore. Being forced to this extent, he felt a headache coming on. The anger and resentment in his heart finally broke through the barrier of reason and exploded. On the other end, Jianghu was so angry at her son that she was trembling all over. Bai Meiwei consoled her gently, but there was a hidden coldness in her beautiful eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. On the other end, Yi Siki heard Lin Shihao and Jianghu talking on the phone and more or less guessed something. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Your mom and Bai Meiwei moved to your home?" She quickly changed her words. His heart tightened and he glared at her. "That's our home." He didn't refute, which was a tacit admission. She suddenly found it very funny. That Bai Meiwei really couldn't wait. They hadn't officially divorced yet, but she was already shameless enough to enter their home. She said mildly, "I'm tired. You should go back and rest too." She turned to leave, but Lin Shihao grabbed her wrist. "Are you angry?" She frowned. "Why would I be angry?" "You're angry that Bai Meiwei moved into our home." He stared into her eyes and said with certainty, "I'm not. That's your home now. You can let whoever you want move in. It's none of my business." She flung his hand away. He stared fixedly at her back view as she left resolutely. A smile appeared in his dark eyes and the corners of his lips turned up. He said slowly, "Wifey, so you still know how to be angry." Since she was angry, it meant that she still cared. He was in a good mood after coming to this conclusion. Oh, it looked like he would be able to sleep well tonight. After Lin Shihao moved upstairs, it directly led to two consequences. The first consequence was that Yi Siki had to make an extra set of meals every day because a certain thick-skinned man would come over to freeload every day. At first, she didn't want to make his share, not because she was stingy, but because she didn't want him to develop a habit. Who knew that he would actually be so thick-skinned as to eat her breakfast, causing her to have no choice but to make another set. The second consequence was that Yi Siki's bedtime was delayed by half an hour because a certain shameless man would stay at her house to play games with Nyonyo every day after freeloading on her for dinner. He would only leave reluctantly when she couldn't hold back her temper and chased him away. After being together for so many years, it was only now that she realized that a certain man with the surname Lin had called her by the wrong name. He should be called Nyo Pai Tang, a sticky and sweet Nyo Pai Tang. More than 10 days passed like this. Yi Siki proposed a divorce again. Lin Shihao was already so good at it that he didn't get angry with her anymore. He directly blocked her mouth with a kiss. She was so angry that she waved her hands and punched him with all her might. He groaned. After he let go of her, he smiled like a kitten that had succeeded in cheating. "Wifey, if you mention those two words again in the future, I will use this method to block your mouth again. You bastard." Yi Siki was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Lin Shihao wasn't in a hurry to get a divorce, but someone else was. The Bai family couldn't hold back anymore and made 2 calls to Yi Siki. Yi Siki was angered by both sides and wanted to tie Lin Shihao up with a rope and take him to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Who knew that at this moment when things were calm on the surface but undercurrents were surging, Lin Shihao's scandal was exposed. An anonymous netizen posted a post that described in detail the emotional entanglement between Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei. It also exposed photos of Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei wearing white coats and chatting face-to-face. There were also photos of Lin Shihao being hospitalized and Bai Meiwei taking care of him. Of course, as an extramarital affair scandal, there was no lack of the abandoned wife. At the same time, photos of Yi Siki covering her face and crying bitterly were released online. If this was just an extramarital affair between 2 ordinary doctors, it wouldn't have attracted so much attention. The bad thing was that the netizen used the identity of the man and woman to talk about it. Lin Shihao was the only son of Jianghu, the female boss of the Wang Jianglu chain of restaurants. He could be considered a rich second-generation heir. On the other hand, Bai Meiwei was the daughter of the director of the city's People's Hospital. She was the daughter of a famous family. Bai Meiwei suddenly received a call from Bailey Fei Yen. "Meiwei, are you okay?" Bai Meiwei heard her worried voice and was puzzled. "I'm not bad. What's wrong?" Bailey Fei Yen had a loud personality and couldn't hide things at all. She opened her mouth and said, "Aya, it's all over the internet. It said that you and Lin Shihao had an extramarital affair and forced his wife away. Now you're pregnant and even moved into his house." Bai Meiwei's head exploded and her face turned pale. It was all over the internet? How could this be? Who was trying to harm her? Could it be Yi Siki? "Meiwei? Meiwei, are you okay?" Bai Meiwei gritted her teeth. "I'm fine. Fei Yen, I'm hanging up first." Without waiting for Bailey Fei Yen to say anything else, she hung up the phone. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger and she used all her strength to swing the vase on the coffee table to the ground. The porcelain vase smashed to the ground and shattered into pieces. Aya Meiwei, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Jiang Rulin heard the noise and hurriedly ran to the living room. Bai Meiwei sat weakly on the sofa. Tears welled up in her eyes and she was about to cry. Auntie Jiang, I accidentally dropped the vase. It's fine if it's dropped. It's just a vase. Why are you crying? Jiang Rulin sat beside her and comforted her gently. Don't cry. It's not good for a pregnant woman to cry too much. Bai Meiwei turned her head and threw herself into her arms. She burst into tears. Auntie, something bad has happened. What's wrong? She raised her head, her face full of tears. I don't know who exposed my relationship with Shihao on the internet. Now everyone is saying that I'm a homewrecker. Auntie, what should we do? Shihao will definitely be affected. Jiang Rulin was stunned at first, then she became anxious. However, she didn't forget that Bai Meiwei was pregnant. She tried her best to suppress the anxiety in her heart and comforted her. Meiwei, don't cry. It's not good for the child to be emotional. Let's think about how to solve this problem first. Bai Meiwei wiped her tears aggrievedly. I don't know who did this to Shihao. She didn't mention herself at all. Every sentence she said was for Lin Shihao's sake. Jiang Rulin couldn't help but follow her train of thought. She frowned and said, that person knows so much. It must be someone you and Shihao know. Bai Meiwei nodded. I guess so too. And that person must have a grudge with us. Otherwise they wouldn't have done this to us. A grudge? Someone who knew the inside story very well? There was only one person who fit both of these criteria. A name immediately popped up in Jiang Rulin's mind. Yisiki. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 440. Yisiki was very puzzled. At work today, her colleagues were all looking at her strangely, as if they were looking at someone begging on the streets. They were looking at her with a gaze that was half sympathetic and half pitiful. The vegetable washer, Xiao Wang, smiled at her. Sister Yi, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Don't be sad over those who aren't worth it. The head chef patted her shoulder. Xiao Yi, you're a good woman. You'll definitely meet a good man who will cherish you. The female chef, Xiao Nan, who was closest to her, hugged her arm and whispered, Sister Siki, don't be sad. That man can't see the good in you. It's his loss to leave you. You'll definitely meet a better man. Yisiki was confused. She looked at them in confusion. What are you all talking about? She had never told anyone about her family situation. Why did they all look like they knew so much about it? Xiao Wang held the iPad in front of her and quickly opened a web page. Sister Yi, look. Your situation is all over the internet. Yisiki was shocked. She quickly snatched the iPad from his hands and carefully browsed through the post about her and Lin Shihao's marriage. The post described Lin Shihao in a very bad light. It said that Lin Shihao had cheated on his marriage in order to climb up the social ladder and had hooked up with the director's daughter. It also said that Lin Shihao was heartless and abandoned his wife. It even said that Lin Shihao took advantage of work to maintain an improper relationship with a female patient. What kind of nonsense was this? Yisiki was angry and anxious. Her face was very ugly and her fingers were trembling. Her colleagues thought that the post had poked at her sore spot and made her sad. They all came forward to comfort her. She took a deep breath, glanced at everyone and said calmly, You're all wrong. My husband isn't that kind of person. This post is made up. Someone is deliberately slandering him. After saying this, she didn't care about the expressions of the crowd. She hurriedly turned around and planned to go to the people's hospital. Since her colleagues knew about this matter, the hospital must know about it too. She had to go there and explain it clearly for Lin Shihao. Just as she came out of the kitchen and was walking along the staff corridor, her cell phone suddenly rang. It was Jiang Rulin. She put the phone to her ear and Jiang Rulin's angry voice immediately exploded. Yisiki, were you the one who exposed Shihao and Meiwei's matter on the internet? A day as husband and wife means endless devotion for the rest of your life. How can you be so cruel? In a moment of panic, Yisiki blurted out, Mom, you've misunderstood. I didn't do it. I just found out about it. Don't call me Mom. I don't have such a heartless daughter-in-law like you. Jiang Rulin had already determined that she was the mastermind, so she said angrily, I was the one who forced you to divorce Shihao. If you have any resentment, then take it out on me. Don't hurt Shihao. Yisiki's face turned pale. She said anxiously, It really wasn't me. We've been together for so many years. Don't you understand my character? How could I do something to hurt Shihao? Jiang Rulin snorted. Who else knows the inside story so well besides you? Moreover, once Mei Wei's matter is exposed, the only person who will benefit from it is you. I want you to clarify this matter quickly and stop hurting Shihao and Mei Wei. Yi Siki knew that Jiang Rulin was a stubborn person. As long as she had decided on something, no one could change her mind. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "Madam Jiang, I'll say it one last time. I really didn't do it. Instead of biting me and not letting go, why don't you hurry up and find the real mastermind?" You. Hello? I'm so angry. How dare you hang up on me? Jiang Rulin was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Bai Mei Wei appeared by her side at the right time and comforted her. "Auntie Jiang, maybe we've really wronged Sister Siki." Jiang Rulin said angrily, "Other than her, I can't think of anyone else." On the other side, Yi Siki felt extremely wronged. She bit her lip hard and quickly walked out of the hotel. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her wrist from behind. She didn't look back. She lowered her head and suppressed her anger in her voice. "Let go." No matter who it was, she only wanted to give them these two words. Xiao Tianxing's voice came from behind her. "Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Where do you want to go?" Yi Siki's body stiffened. She didn't expect him to appear. "I have something to do. I'm going out." Her vision blurred and Xiao Tianxing appeared in front of her. There was a faint smile on his handsome face. "What are you going out for?" Yi Siki pursed her lips. "Something bad happened and I need to deal with it. I'm taking a leave of absence today. Please approve it, President." Xiao Tianxing's smile froze. His dark eyes stared straight at her. "Is it because of that post that you're worried that your husband will be misunderstood, so you're rushing to the hospital to clarify things for him?" Yi Siki was slightly stunned. Then she understood. Now that this matter had caused a stir, it wasn't strange for him to know about it. She answered honestly, "Yes, I need to go to the hospital." "Are you an idiot?" Xiao Tianxing's expression suddenly became fierce. He raised his hand and knocked her head. He said fiercely, "Lin Shihao's mother has already determined that you're the mastermind. If you rush to the hospital to clarify things now, you might be used by someone with ulterior motives and cause more misunderstandings. They might think that this is a case of revenge by an abandoned wife." Yi Siki looked at him seriously. "Even if people misunderstand, I don't care. I can't just watch him get into trouble." Xiao Tianxing's eyes narrowed. He clenched his fists tightly. After a while, the corners of his lips turned up. He sneered. "Looks like you really love him. Even if he hurt you so deeply, you still can't forget him." "Actually, I've never forgotten him." These words were on the tip of Yi Siki's tongue, but she swallowed them in the end. She said, "Tianxing, thank you for reminding me. However, I still have to go and find him." She didn't know what situation Lin Shihao was in right now. She was very nervous and uneasy. She could only feel at ease after confirming that he was fine. Lin Shihao's reputation had plummeted. In the past, patients would line up a few days in advance just to see him. Now his office was deserted. He had been labeled as someone who took advantage of female patients. How could anyone still be willing to see him? No matter where he went, he would receive strange looks from everyone. There were also people who pointed at him, whispered, and questioned his character. The matter was getting out of hand. Bai Jiao couldn't protect Lin Shihao anymore. As the director, he had to answer to the hospital's board of directors. The chairman, Cheng Wentao, was in his 60s. He used to be the secretary of the county party committee. He was an upright person who handled matters strictly. He had always paid attention to improving the hospital's work style. Therefore, after Lin Shihao's matter was exposed, he took it very seriously and planned to use this opportunity to rectify the hospital's work style. When Yi Siki rushed to the hospital, the board of directors was in the middle of a meeting to discuss Lin Shihao's matter. As the parties involved, Lin Shihao and Bai Mei Wei were also called to the meeting. The board of directors was made up of 9 directors, and Bai Jiao was one of them. Including Lin Shihao and Bai Mei Wei, there were a total of 11 people present. Cheng Wentao sat at the head of the table with a serious expression. His sharp gaze fell on Lin Shihao as he said in a deep voice, "Dr. Lin, someone exposed online that you had an extramarital affair with Dr. Bai and sexually harassed female patients. What's your explanation for this?" Lin Shihao was expressionless as he said slowly, "What happened between Dr. Bai and me is a private matter. There's no need to explain it to the board of directors. As for the accusation of sexual harassment, it's purely slander. I've never done anything that goes against professional ethics." Cheng Wentao's face sank. "The matter between you and Dr. Bai has gone beyond the scope of a private matter. Due to your special status, This kind of scandal has caused a huge negative impact on our hospital's reputation. Today, in front of the board of directors, you must give a reasonable explanation. Lin Shihao's gaze was cold as he said indifferently, "There's nothing to explain. The matter between Dr. Bai and me is my fault. I'm willing to bear the legal responsibility. As for sexual harassment, it's purely slander. I'm very sorry for damaging the hospital's reputation. I'm willing to take the blame and resign." "No, you can't resign." The door to the conference room suddenly opened and a hurried voice sounded. Everyone looked up and saw a short-haired woman standing at the door. She was dressed in professional attire and her face was flushed from exercising. Her mouth was slightly open and she was panting heavily. She looked like she had run over in a hurry. Lin Shihao's eyes narrowed. Siki, what was she doing here? Seeing Yi Siki close the door and walk into the conference room, a flash of hatred quickly flashed across Bai Meiwei's eyes. Cheng Wentao frowned and said in a displeased tone, "Who are you?" Yi Siki walked to the front of the conference table and bowed politely. "Everyone, I'm very sorry to interrupt your meeting. My name is Yi Siki. I'm Lin Shihao's ex-wife." Lin Shihao's body stiffened when he heard the word, ex-wife. His cold gaze immediately locked onto Yi Siki. What was she trying to do? Cheng Wentao's expression softened. "Madam Yi, what brings you here?" Yi Siki glanced at the cards on the table in front of him and smiled. "Hello, Chairman. I'm here to clarify some matters and clear Lin Shihao's name. Please give me a chance." Cheng Wentao nodded. "Go ahead." Yi Siki glanced at Lin Shihao and then looked around. She smiled and said, "Lin Shihao and I divorced a year ago. He and Dr. Bai only started dating after our divorce, so there's no such thing as an affair." Lin Shihao suddenly clenched his fists. His deep eyes were like a dangerous whirlpool that seemed to suck her whole body in. The deputy director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, Li Donghao, was also a director. His expression was calm and there was a probing look in his eyes. He said slowly, "Madam Yi, did you really divorce a year ago? Why do I always see you delivering lunch to Dr. Lin? Also, it seems like you've always been living together, right?" Hongcha 866. Chapter 441. Yi Siki smiled awkwardly. "It's embarrassing to talk about this. I've always been a housewife with no source of income. After the divorce, I couldn't support myself and my daughter. Moreover, we didn't want our daughter to get hurt, so we kept the divorce a secret from her. So, I temporarily stayed at my ex-husband's house. After I found a job and had a source of income, I moved out of his house." A shrewd-looking middle-aged man said, "It sounds reasonable, but you don't mind showing us the divorce certificate, right?" Yi Siki's expression froze. Just as she was about to say something to get away with it, she heard a loud bang. Lin Shihao slammed the table and stood up abruptly. His face was ashen as he glared at her fiercely. "Enough, stop lying." Everyone was stunned. Yi Siki's heart tightened. She glared at him angrily. "Lin Shihao, shut up. I'm telling the truth." "The truth?" Lin Shihao sneered. He slowly looked around and saw all the directors looking at him. He said coldly, "The truth is that I cheated on you. Yi Siki and I haven't divorced yet, and we won't get a divorce in the future. There's no need for this meeting to continue. I'll take full responsibility and resign from all my positions. I won't bring shame to the hospital. Sorry, I'll take my leave first." With that, he grabbed Yi Siki's wrist and dragged her towards the door. "Let go of me." Siki was extremely anxious. As she was forced to walk out, she turned her head and shouted, "Chairman, don't listen to him. He's just saying things out of anger." Ugh. Lin Shihao suddenly reached out and covered her mouth. He quickly dragged her out of the meeting room. With a bang, the door to the meeting room closed. Everyone stared at the door in a daze. Cheng Wentao reacted quickly. He coughed and said, "Dr. Lin doesn't admit to the accusation of sexual harassment. It's very likely that someone is deliberately defaming him. I think we should investigate this person seriously and find out the truth." Someone asked, "Then what about Dr. Lin and Dr. Bai?" Li Donghao said, "Since Dr. Lin has admitted his mistake and is willing to take responsibility, I think we should respect his wishes." Bai Jiao frowned. He wanted to say a few words for Lin Shihao, but when he thought that his daughter was also involved in this matter, he couldn't say anything, so he dismissed the idea. The vice president said, "Dr. Lin is the backbone of our hospital. If she is fired because of this, it seems a little too much. I agree with the chairman's opinion. Let's find out the truth first before we punish Dr. Lin." In the conference room, everyone was discussing how to deal with this matter. Lin Shihao had already dragged Yi Siki into his office. Lin Shihao's handsome face was covered with a layer of frost, and his sharp eyes stared at her. Why did you lie? Do you really want a divorce that badly? Yi Siki was almost angered to death by him. Her red lips trembled as she said angrily, "Why are you stopping me?" He was clearly about to succeed. "I just don't want you to be fired. Is that wrong?" He held her shoulders forcefully and shouted at her, "You stupid woman, when will you understand that power, money, and reputation are not important? The only thing that matters is you. I just don't want to lose you." She rarely saw him roar so loudly without caring about his image. The veins on his forehead were throbbing, indicating that he was extremely furious. However, she did not feel afraid. The anger in her heart had miraculously disappeared, leaving only warmth in her heart. She stared into his eyes and asked seriously, "Shihao, do you know what you're doing?" "Of course I know. Those empty things can't be compared to you at all." His expression was solemn, as if he was making an oath. He said slowly, "Siki, if I'm sentenced, will you wait for me?" She felt a lump in her throat and answered solemnly, "I will." He pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. "Your words are enough. Honey, don't try to push me away anymore. Let's face it together." She was silent for a moment. "Okay." He was extremely emotional and hugged her even tighter. "Let's go home tonight?" "Forget it, let's go home tomorrow?" He suddenly remembered that Bai Meiwei and his mother were still living in his house. She said softly, "Shihao, although I'm willing to wait for you and face it with you, I don't want to go home for the time being." That house was no longer their home. There was another woman living there, and that woman was pregnant with his child. She really didn't want to face that. His body stiffened. After a moment of silence he said, "Okay, we won't go home." As long as she didn't insist on a divorce, it was fine. After a while Yi Siki said, "Shihao, I suspect that someone is deliberately trying to harm you behind your back. Did you offend someone?" Lin Shihao's deep eyes moved slightly. "I've seen those photos. They were basically taken in the hospital. I suspect that the person who posted the post is hiding in our hospital. I plan to get someone to help check his IP address." Yi Siki's mind worked quickly. She suddenly thought of something and smiled. "I know a computer expert. Leave this to me." He looked at her suspiciously. "Who is it?" She beamed. "Xiaobao. Although he's young, I heard from Xia that he's a computer expert." Although he was a little skeptical of Xiaobao's ability, he didn't want to dampen his wife's enthusiasm. He smiled. "Okay, I'll leave this to my wife." Lin Shihao's incident caused an uproar and even appeared in the newspapers. Xia Dong had always paid attention to current affairs, so naturally she didn't miss this piece of news. When she was having breakfast with Bailey Han, she was a little absent-minded. She wondered if she should call Siki and ask about the situation. Bailey Han saw that his wife was in a daze. She was poking at the ham with a fork. The corners of his lips curled up. He brought her plate in front of him. As he helped her cut the ham, he asked, "Honey, what are you thinking about? The ham is about to be poked into a sieve by you." Xia Dong suddenly came back to her senses. She looked down at the plate. Where's the plate?" Bailey Han couldn't help but laugh. His wife looked so cute when she was in a daze. Xia Dong saw that he had placed the plate with the ham in front of her again. She blushed and snorted awkwardly. "Who told you to steal my plate?" "Okay, it's my fault. I'll definitely report it to you in the future." Bailey Han laughed happily. Xia Dong raised her eyebrows and smiled. She drank a mouthful of milk and said, "Hubby, did you read today's newspaper?" Bailey Han grunted. "Are you going to talk about Lin Shihao?" He had already guessed that her absent-mindedness during breakfast had something to do with Lin Shihao's report. Xia Dong nodded and said gloomily, "Yeah, Lin Shihao definitely wouldn't sexually harass a female patient. Also, his relationship with Bai Meiwei isn't as bad as the article said. I think someone is deliberately framing him. You want to help him?" He pulled out a tissue and wiped the milk foam from the corner of her lips. "Yeah. Although he hurt Siki and made me angry, he's still my friend. I can't just stand by and watch him get framed. Let's help him and also help Siki, okay, hubby?" She grinned and smiled sweetly. She looked so obsequious. Bailey Han couldn't help but laugh. He stared at her with a burning gaze. "Okay, I can help him. But how are you going to thank me?" Xia Dong thought of something and blushed. She whispered in his ear, "At most I'll agree to wear that." His lips curled into a devilish smile. "What?" She was annoyed and embarrassed. She pinched his waist. You know what I'm talking about. Are you pretending not to understand? He chuckled softly and quickly kissed her cheek. He lowered his voice and said, Okay, deal. Wifey, I'm looking forward to your sexy lingerie. He deliberately said those words word by word in her ear. His warm breath blew on her skin. She couldn't help but tremble slightly. She actually felt a little thirsty. She quickly pushed him away. Her cheeks were burning as she whispered, Be careful of your image. Although there were only the two of them in the dining room, their family could appear at any time. That afternoon Yusiki called. Just as she was about to ask Xiao Bao for help, Xia Dong interrupted her. Yezi, I don't need you to tell me. I've already asked Ahan to help me track down the person who posted the article. Yusiki was very grateful. Then I'm really grateful to your husband. When this matter is settled, I'll treat you to a meal. Xia Dong teased, You don't have to thank my husband. Just thank me because I've already promised to give him a thank you gift. He's so petty now. As long as I ask him for help, he'll definitely ask me for something in return. Yusiki couldn't help but laugh. No way. Let me guess. Don't tell me he wants you to repay him with your body. Xia Dong was a little embarrassed. She deliberately laughed mischievously. Since you know so much, it seems like your old Lin has also blackmailed you before. I was just guessing. It was really just a guess. Hey. I can already tell that someone is feeling guilty. Hurry up and admit it. Yisiki's cheeks were burning hot. She lowered her voice and said, Stop fooling around. He's here. Lin Shihao was sitting right beside her. He could hear their conversation. Xia Dong was stunned at first. Then she burst into laughter. She deliberately raised her voice and said, Ask old Lin to sit further away. We good sisters still have some private things to talk about. Lin Shihao obviously heard what Xia Dong said over the phone. His handsome face looked a little awkward. He stood up and said, Honey, I'll go buy some drinks. He didn't deliberately lower his voice. Xia Dong naturally heard it too. She sighed over the phone. Your old Lin is really a good person. How are you guys doing now? Yisiki heard Lin Shihao close the door. She smiled and said, Didn't I move out of my house? In the end, he also moved to the apartment above my apartment. Now he's freeloading at my house every day. He's just like a child. He won't leave. Tell me, why didn't I realize that he was such a rascal before? Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 442. Xia Dong imagined Lin Shihao acting shamelessly and couldn't help but laugh out loud. After laughing, she said seriously, Yezi, old Lin did this because he loves you. You should try to start over. Don't be in a hurry to get a divorce. Yeah, I know. I already told him that I won't get a divorce, but I don't want to go back for the time being. Yisiki sighed. Bai Meiwei's fighting spirit is really strong. She actually moved into my house in order to cultivate her relationship with old Lin. Sometimes I really wonder if such a scheming woman would get drunk and have sex with someone else. Also, when I called old Lin that night, she said that old Lin was drunk and unconscious, but her voice sounded very sober. If old Lin was really unconscious, how could he have forced himself on her? Xia Dong frowned. I also suspect that she seduced old Lin on purpose and then pushed all the blame onto him. It's a pity that only the two of them know what happened that night. That might not be the case. Xia Dong suddenly thought of something and her eyes lit up. Do you still remember which hotel they were at for the seminar that night? Most hotels have surveillance cameras. Let's check the hotel's surveillance footage. Maybe we can find some clues. Yisiki's heart raced when she heard what she said. If they could really prove that Bai Meiwei seduced old Lin on purpose, then old Lin's rape charge could not be established. She said hurriedly, I still remember that it was at the Hanting Hotel. At the time, Bai Meiwei said that she and old Lin were drunk and hired a designated driver to send them home. Then they actually stayed at the hotel for the night. Xia Dong felt more and more that Lin Shihao might have fallen into Bai Meiwei's trap. She snorted and said, This Bai Meiwei has been lying from the beginning. You were right to suspect her. Yezi, don't worry. I will definitely find a way to find out the truth. Xia, I really don't know how to thank you. We're good sisters. There's no need to be so polite. It was a cold day, but Yisiki felt warm inside. The board of directors of the hospital decided to suspend Lin Shihao temporarily. He would be dealt with after the hospital found out whether he had committed any sexual harassment. During his suspension, Bai Jiao kept pressuring him to get a divorce as soon as possible so that he could get a marriage certificate with Bai Meiwei as soon as possible. However, Lin Shihao remained unmoved and bluntly said, I'm willing to bear all the legal responsibilities, but I will never divorce my wife. Bai Jiao's hair had turned white by quite a bit. He really wanted to sue him in court, but Bai Meiwei begged him bitterly, asking him to give Lin Shihao a little more time. Bai Meiwei was already prepared to cut off all means of retreat. She wanted to use the final blow to win happiness for herself. Meiwei, didn't I tell you not to do the housework? What if you get tired? Jiang Rulin came back from outside and saw Bai Meiwei busy in the kitchen. She hurried over to help. Bai Meiwei smiled gently. Annie, I'm not tired. I just want to make some soup and send it to Shihao. He lives alone outside and has no one to take care of him. I'm very worried about him. I didn't expect you to care about him so much. Annie is very happy. Meiwei, I'll go with you. Shihao has moved out for so long, but I haven't been to his place yet. Jiang Rulin was full of smiles as she helped her take the pot of soup off the gas stove. Bai Meiwei covered her mouth and laughed. Even if you didn't say it, I would still invite you to go with me. Jiang Rulin drove while Bai Meiwei sat in the front passenger seat. In addition to making ginseng chicken soup, they also bought some nutritional products and fruits for Lin Shihao. The car stopped in the neighborhood. Bai Meiwei glanced at the surrounding residential buildings and said, Auntie, did Shihao tell you which floor he lives on? He only said that he lives on the 6th floor. I don't know which room. When Jiang Rulin asked Lin Shihao refused to tell her the room number. It was probably to prevent them from looking for trouble again. Bai Meiwei smiled and said, It's okay. After we go upstairs we can knock on the door and ask. She opened the back door and planned to take out the things in the back seat. Jiang Rulin hurriedly said, Meiwei, don't move. I'll do it. Be careful not to tire the child. Annie, it's okay. These bags are very light. After Bai Meiwei took out the bags, Jiang Rulin immediately snatched them from her hands and handed the lightest thermos to her. The two of them had just walked to the elevator when Bai Meiwei suddenly stopped. Oh, I left my phone in the car. Jiang Rulin thought for a moment and said, I'll go get it. Meiwei, you take these things up the elevator first. That's not good. Forget it. The phone is in the car anyway. It won't be lost. What if you miss an important call? You go up first. I'll make a trip. I'll be back soon. Jiang Rulin was actually worried that if Bai Jiao contacted her to talk about Lin Shihao and she missed the call, then it would be troublesome. Okay then, Auntie. Sorry to trouble you. You don't have to be so polite. Here, the bags are for you. Be careful. Okay, Auntie. I know. Please be careful. Bai Meiwei held the bags tightly as she watched Jiang Rulin's back disappear down the corridor. Her lips curled into a strange smile. After entering the elevator, she did not press the button for the 6th floor. Instead, she pressed 5. Room 501 was where Yisiki lived. Bai Meiwei had specially hired a private investigator to find out Yisiki's address. From the private investigator, she found out that she was resting at home at this very moment. As for Lin Shihao, he was originally lazing around in room 501. However, Bai Jiao had called him half an hour ago and said that he had something to talk to him about, so he was summoned away. So, Yisiki and her daughter were the only ones left in the house. Yisiki heard the doorbell ring. She frowned when she saw Bai Meiwei through the peephole. She didn't know why she was here. After hesitating for a moment, she still opened the door. Miss Bai, why are you here? Is something the matter? Bai Meiwei sized her up quietly. She was wearing a red woolen dress. Her figure was slim and her face was rosy. She looked like a happy woman who was nourished by love. It was impossible to imagine that she was an abandoned woman who was pitied by everyone on the internet. Bai Meiwei smiled and said, Auntie and I came to visit Shihao and realized that he wasn't home. I guessed that he might be at your house, so I took the liberty to ask. Yisiki's voice was slightly cold. How did you know that Shihao lives above my house? Bai Meiwei stroked the long hair by her ear and smiled sweetly. It was Shihao who told me. He also said that he treats you as a cook and goes to your house to eat every day. It's convenient and convenient. Thank you very much for taking care of him during this period, Miss Yi. Yisiki's mouth twitched. If she didn't trust Shihao, she would have been deceived by Bai Meiwei's words. She laughed coldly. Miss Bai, did you come here today to sow discord between my husband and me? Bai Meiwei widened her eyes in shock and looked at her in disbelief. Miss Yi, why would you come up with such a ridiculous idea? I'm just speaking the truth. I really don't mean to sow discord between the two of you. Yisiki frowned impatiently. Bai Meiwei, I'm not interested in watching you put on an act. If you have something to say, then say it quickly. If there's nothing else, Please disappear from my house immediately. I really don't want to see you. Bai Meiwei exclaimed exaggeratedly, Miss Yi, why are your words so vulgar? You sound like a lowly person. Yi Siki laughed mockingly. Then I'm really sorry. My patience and upbringing are reserved for people of noble character. When faced with a lowly person, of course I don't need to be courteous with her. Bai Meiwei's expression changed slightly. A small flame of anger ignited in her eyes. She gritted her teeth and said, Yi Siki, don't be too smug. Do you think that you can defeat me just because you deliberately exposed my relationship with Shihao? Let me tell you, don't be delusional. Yi Siki couldn't be bothered to argue with her. She shook her head and looked at her with pity. Bai Meiwei, I really think that you should check your brain. You're the one who's scheming and harboring evil intentions. Do you think that others are as shameless as you? You? Bai Meiwei's long, shapely eyebrows shot up. Just as she was about to fly into a rage, she suddenly heard the sound of the elevator door opening from upstairs. I really didn't mean to ruin your relationship with Senior on purpose. I just wanted to give the child in my stomach a home. Sister Siki, I've let you down. All of this has nothing to do with Senior. I beg you, please let him go. Don't harm him anymore. Yi Siki's eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Bai Meiwei. Bai Meiwei's eyes were filled with tears as she said, Sister Siki, please forgive me. I didn't mean to ruin your relationship with Senior. Don't let him go. Bai Meiwei, are you crazy? Yi Siki saw her fake sobbing and wished she could immediately fling her hands away. However, she didn't forget that Bai Meiwei was pregnant. She only used some strength to try and pry her hands away. I'm not crazy, Sister Siki. I know that you were the one who posted those slanderous comments about Senior online. I beg you, if there's anything, just come at me. Don't hurt Senior anymore. Bai Meiwei's grip tightened and Yi Siki was extremely frustrated. Her tone also became irritable. Bai Meiwei, let go of me. I've already said that I didn't do those things. Don't pester me anymore. Sister Siki, I won't pester you anymore. Bai Meiwei suddenly let go of Yi Siki's hands and let out a shrill scream. Her body staggered and fell down the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. Like a rolling snowball, Bai Meiwei rolled down the stairs while screaming. Yi Siki was immediately stunned. Before she could react, a panic-stricken figure had already rushed down the stairs and shouted anxiously, Meiwei, are you okay? It was Jianghu. She ran down the stairs in a panic and shouted angrily at Yi Siki, who was stunned on the spot. Yi Siki, I didn't expect you to be so heartless as to hurt Meiwei. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 443. Yi Siki snapped out of her daze and shouted, I didn't. She fell on her own. Bai Meiwei lay in the corridor, her body curled up. Her face was pale and full of pain. She hugged her stomach tightly and said in agony, It hurts, my stomach hurts. Save my child. Jianghu was furious. I won't argue with you for now. Saving a life is more important. What are you still standing here for? Hurry up and call an ambulance. Yi Siki held her breath. She finally understood that she had been tricked by Bai Meiwei. She really wanted to slam the door and leave them there, but if she did that, she would be accused of harming Bai Meiwei. She wasn't that stupid. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She ran into the room and immediately called the ambulance. After Jianghu yelled at Yi Siki, she immediately rushed to Bai Meiwei's side and comforted her anxiously. Meiwei, it's okay. You and the child will be fine. Don't worry, the ambulance will be here soon. Bai Meiwei was in so much pain that tears welled up in her eyes. She covered her stomach with one hand and grabbed Jianghu's wrist with the other. Annie, it's too late. The ambulance will take at least 20 minutes to get here. I beg you, take me to the hospital. I must save the child. Okay. I'll take you to the hospital right away. Jianghu was so anxious that her hands were trembling. She wanted to help Bai Meiwei up from the ground, but her physical strength was limited. If she were to accidentally trip Bai Meiwei down the stairs, wouldn't that make things worse? Thinking of this, she looked up and shouted at Yi Siki's door, Yi Siki, hurry up and come out. Yi Siki had just hung up the ambulance when she heard Jianghu's shout. She immediately rushed out of the room. Jianghu ordered her without hesitation, hurry up and come down. Help me take Meiwei to the hospital. I've already called an ambulance. The ambulance is too slow. Do you want to kill the child in Meiwei's stomach? Yi Siki felt helpless. Saving a life was like putting out a fire. She didn't have time to change her clothes and shoes, nor did she have time to take out her phone and wallet. She hurriedly locked the door and ran downstairs to help Jiang Rulin's support by Mei Wei, who was groaning in pain, into the elevator. You drive. I'll take care of Mei Wei from the back. Jiang Rulin handed the car keys to Yisiki, then helped by Mei Wei into the back seat. Yisiki used the GPS to search for the nearest hospital and drove there at top speed. Bai Mei Wei leaned into Jiang Rulin's arms, beads of sweat rolling down her forehead. Her pale face was contorted in pain and she kept saying, "It hurts." Jiang Rulin's heart ached terribly. She kept comforting her and wiping away her sweat. Then she anxiously shouted at Yisiki, "Drive faster." Yisiki saw Jiang Rulin's anxious expression through the rearview mirror. She bit her lip and tried her best to suppress the complicated emotions in her heart. The car stopped at the entrance of the hospital, and the medical staff immediately carried Bai Mei Wei into the emergency room on a stretcher. A female obstetrician and a nurse wanted to give her emergency treatment, but Bai Mei Wei stopped them and said with a sad face, "Doctor, there's no need to save me. My child is gone." The female doctor's surname was Zheng. She said patiently, "Madam, this is just your guess. Let me examine you first." "No, there's no need. I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist myself. I'm very clear about this." Bai Mei Wei's pale face looked miserable. On the way to the hospital, I was already sure that the child was gone. I just didn't want my future mother-in-law to be sad, so I didn't say anything. "Nurse Miss, I'd like to have a few words with Dr. Zheng in private. Can you please leave for a moment?" The nurse turned to look at Dr. Zheng, who nodded. "Little Wu, you can leave first." After the nurse left, Bai Mei Wei said, "Dr. Zheng, I'll just lie here and rest for a while. There's no need for any examination. Please tell my family that my child is gone." Dr. Zheng said, "Madam, even if the child is gone, I'll still perform the surgery on you and save the child." "No, I don't need that. You just have to tell my family that my child is gone. I'll take care of the rest myself. This is against the rules. If anything happens to you, I'll have to bear the responsibility. Dr. Zheng, please help me with this. I'll be very grateful." Bai Mei Wei was already prepared. She took out a check from her pocket and extended it to the doctor. In the hospital, it was not uncommon to secretly receive red packets from patients. This Dr. Zheng had also received red packets from many people. When she saw the 5-digit sum on the check, she was suddenly tempted. She thought for a moment and said, "Are you sure your body is fine?" Bai Mei Wei saw the hesitation in her eyes and smiled. "You just have to pass the message. I'll take care of the rest." 10 minutes later, Dr. Zheng walked out of the emergency room. Jiang Rulin immediately went up to him and asked nervously, "Doctor, is the child safe?" Dr. Zheng shook his head. "I'm very sorry. The child is gone. The patient has just undergone surgery and is very weak. When you go in, be quiet. Don't disturb her." Jiang Rulin staggered back and said in a daze, "The child is gone? My grandson is gone?" Yusiki's feelings were very complicated. She should be happy that the child in Bai Mei Wei's stomach was gone, but she was not happy at all because she knew that Bai Mei Wei had sacrificed her own child in order to frame her. She felt sad for the child and indignant at Bai Mei Wei's actions. Jiang Rulin was very sad. She had great expectations for this grandson of hers, but in the end, he was gone. She found it hard to accept this reality. Yisiki could not bear to see her sad appearance. She walked forward and wanted to comfort her, but just as she approached, she suddenly reached out and slapped Yisiki hard on the face. She said angrily, "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. It's not enough that you harmed my son, but now you want to harm my grandson. Yisiki, how can you be so vicious?" Her slap was so hard that Yisiki's head was tilted to the side. There were obvious fingerprints on her fair cheeks. She stared in disbelief at the woman she had called mother for 8 years. Her eyes were filled with pain. I really didn't do it. We've been together for 8 years, but you don't believe me at all." Jiang Rulin was furious. She pointed at Yisiki's nose and said angrily, "I believe my eyes and ears. I saw you push Mei Wei down the stairs and caused her to lose her child." Yisiki's chest rose and fell rapidly. She knew that it was useless for her to say anything now. Jiang Rulin had already determined that she was the murderer. It wasn't just Jiang Rulin. The other people in the corridor were also staring at her strangely. Those gazes were filled with malice and condemnation. It made her feel a chill in her heart. 2 young girls were very close to them. One of them, a short-haired girl, whispered to her companion, "Yisiki? Bai Mei Wei. Lan Lan, don't you think these 2 names are very familiar?" "Yeah, they're very familiar. I think they're that. Oh right, they're the wife and mistress of that perverted gynecologist Lin Shihao who went viral on the internet. What do you mean? Lin Shihao's wife deliberately caused the death of his mistress's child? That seems to be the case. Looks like Yi Siki isn't as pitiful and innocent as the internet says. Could she be the one who posted that post? Why would she do that? The two girls were chatting animatedly when a pregnant mother-to-be beside them interrupted. Of course it's to gain everyone's sympathy. This is an abandoned wife's revenge on a mistress and a scumbag. Wow, that's so exciting. Yisiki, well done. I support you. Shoo, don't shout so loudly. Although Yisiki couldn't hear what they were saying, she could tell from their eyes that they were discussing her. She then looked at the furious Jiang Rulin and clenched her fists. Calmly she said word by word, Madam Jiang, I'll say it for the last time. I've never done anything to hurt Shihao and Bai Meiwei. Bai Meiwei rolled down the stairs on her own. After saying this, she turned around arrogantly. Her back was very straight, and she ignored the curious gazes of the people around her. She walked away arrogantly, maintaining her dignity, and left this place that made her feel so humiliated. Soon the scene at the hospital was exposed online. Some busybodies claimed that the mastermind was Yi Siki. In order to get revenge, she framed her own husband for sexual harassment and even pushed Bai Meiwei down the stairs, causing her to lose her child. At the beginning, many people had condemned Bai Meiwei for being despicable and breaking up a family. But now, the direction of the criticism had changed. The target of condemnation was Yi Siki. Everyone said that she was too vicious and would do anything to get revenge. The few voices that supported Yi Siki were also suppressed by the condemnation of her. When Lin Shihao heard this news, he immediately rushed to Siki's house. Siki opened the door and looked at his handsome face. She said calmly, I didn't push her down the stairs. Do you believe me? I believe you. His gaze was deep. It was a simple word, but it made her sniffle. She threw herself into his arms and said in a low voice, She came to make trouble for me and deliberately rolled down the stairs in front of your mother. Although I don't understand why she would use the child as the price to frame me when the child is so important to her, I'm not lying. She really rolled down the stairs on her own. He hugged her tightly and said gently, I believe you. Lin Shihao trusted her completely, but Jiang Rulin and the Bai family were unwilling to believe her. They blamed Yi Siki for the loss of Bai Meiwei's child, especially the Bai family. They felt that their daughter had lost her only child and might not be able to have children in the future. Lin Shihao had to take responsibility. They gave Lin Shihao a deadline of 1 day. If Lin Shihao didn't marry Bai Meiwei tomorrow, they were determined to take it to court. Come and see. Xingwu 799. Chapter 444. Lin Shihao remained unmoved despite the storm outside. The next day he drove his daughter to school and his wife to work as usual. On the other hand, Yi Siki couldn't hold it in any longer. She really wanted to call Xia Dong and ask her how the investigation was going, but she couldn't bring it up in front of Lin Shihao. She planned to find an opportunity to call her after arriving at the company. Lin Shihao's car was parked downstairs at the Century Splendid Hotel. Yi Siki wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. She turned to look at Lin Shihao. Hubby, why don't I not go to work today and stay at home with you? Today was the deadline that Bai Jiao had given them. They might be forced to separate tomorrow. Lin Shihao smiled. Honey, you can't skip work every other day. Gigai, go to work. I'm very busy today. I don't need you to accompany me. She was surprised. What are you busy with today? I have to buy groceries, cook, clean and pick up my wife and child. Don't you think I'm very busy? He looked serious, but there was a smile in his eyes. Her heart ached. He used to be a workaholic, but now he was a house husband. Could he accept such a difference? She forced a smile. Yes, you're really busy. Can I order some dishes? He smiled. Of course. I'm a chef. I can satisfy you with anything you want. I want scrambled eggs with tomatoes. That was his best dish. Okay. He chuckled, leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Hurry to work. I'll pick you up in the afternoon. She kissed him back, then got out of the car. She smiled and waved as she watched him drive away. Yi Siki didn't expect that when she walked to the entrance of the hotel, a group of paparazzi would suddenly surround her. Some of them had cameras in their hands, while others had microphones in their hands. They all asked at once, Miss Yi, may I ask if you were the one who posted that post? Miss Yi, did your husband really sexually harass you or did you frame him? Miss Yi, did you push Miss Bai down the stairs and lose her child? Miss Yi, all sorts of sharp questions flooded Yisiki like a tidal wave. This was the first time she had encountered such a situation. She hurriedly covered her face with her arms. Please stop taking pictures. However, her voice was quickly drowned out by the questioning. The shutters kept flashing, and those people surrounded her even more tightly. The scene was chaotic. A silver Bentley drove towards the underground parking lot. Xiao Tianxing was browsing the news on his iPad when he realized that Yisiki's incident had actually made it to the top of the search rankings. He couldn't help but frown. The assistant driving in the front seat suddenly said, "President, Miss Yi seems to have been besieged by paparazzi." Xiao Tianxing suddenly looked up and saw the noisy crowd at the entrance of the hotel. In the middle of the crowd, there was a woman with her arms covering her face. It really was Yisiki. Stop the car. He threw the iPad on the seat, opened the car door and strode toward the gate. The assistant hurriedly followed. Yisiki was besieged by the paparazzi and had no way to fight back. She was about to ask the hotel security team for help when a low, magnetic voice suddenly said, "Everyone, please let go of Miss Yi." She instinctively looked up and saw Xiao Tianxing standing less than 5 meters away from them in a suit. His handsome face was cold and his deep eyes were staring at her. It's the second son of the Xiao group. Someone recognized Xiao Tianxing and shouted, "Mr. Xiao, may I ask what is your relationship with Miss Yi?" The paparazzi's nose was very sensitive. They immediately sensed that his relationship with Yisiki was not ordinary. "Miss Yi is my employee and I have the obligation to protect her. Please don't harass her here. This will have a bad impact on her in our hotel." Xiao Tianxing said, "Miss Yi is my employee. I have an obligation to protect her. Please don't harass her here." The paparazzi looked at each other. Xiao Tianxing raised his wrist and looked at his watch. His cold gaze fell on Yisiki. He said calmly, "Miss Yi, there are only 10 minutes left before you have to go to work. Do you want to be late?" "No, I don't. Thank you, President. Please make way." Yisiki was reminded by him and immediately reacted. She forced her way out of the crowd. Fortunately, the paparazzi did not make things difficult for her because of Xiao Tianxing's presence. Xiao Tianxing glanced at Yisiki's back as she ran away. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and glanced at the people present. He smiled slightly. "Thank you for giving me some face. My assistant will take everyone's name cards and give everyone a small gift according to the address on your name cards." Xiao Tianxing was indeed someone who had been in the business world for many years. He was very good at using threats and promises. When the assistant heard this, he quickly went forward to collect everyone's name cards. "President Xiao, you are too kind." The paparazzi thanked him. Xiao Tianxing smiled. "It's my pleasure. Actually, I'm a little curious. How did Miss Ye's matter become so big that it even alarmed our friends in the media?" The paparazzi usually followed famous people. It was rare to see them follow ordinary people. Everyone understood this principle. One of the reporters smiled and said, "I received this task from the leader. I heard that someone deliberately leaked the information. Even Miss Ye's company and home address were revealed by that person." Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled. "I see. Do any of you know the identity of the person who leaked the information?" Everyone shook their heads. However, Xiao Tianxing already had a suspect in his mind. Yisiki changed into her chef's uniform and entered the kitchen. She realized that everyone was looking at her strangely again. It was as if they were trying to determine if she was really a vicious woman like what the internet said. Yisiki felt helpless. However, she did not intend to explain herself. It was useless to explain to people who did not trust her. As usual, she greeted everyone with a smile. Everyone responded with a smile, but those smiles looked very stiff. At noon they had lunch at the staff cafeteria. In the past there were 4 girls who ate with her. Now only she and Xiaonan were left. The 2 of them sat cross-legged by the window with fast food in their hands. Xiaonan lowered her voice and said, "Sister Siki, I believe that you are a good person." Yisiki looked up in surprise. Seeing her watery eyes filled with sincerity, she could not help but smile. "Thank you." Xiaonan grinned brightly. "Sister Siki, no matter what the people online say, don't be discouraged. You are the best woman I know." Yisiki and Xiaonan had not known each other for long, but she trusted her wholeheartedly. It would be a lie to say that she was not touched. Yisiki smiled. "Xiaonan, you are great too." "Thank you." "Do you mind if I sit here?" A clear male voice came from above. Yisiki and Xiaonan looked up at the same time. They saw Xiao Tianxing standing by the table with a tray in his hands. There was a gentle smile on his handsome face, and he looked very elegant and handsome. Xiaonan was almost dazzled by his smile. She stammered, "CEO." It was her first time seeing the CEO in the staff cafeteria. After she said that, her little face turned red. Xiao Tianxing smiled and nodded. His gaze fell on Yi Siki. "What's wrong? Am I not welcome?" Yi Siki did not know what he was up to, but when she saw that everyone's eyes were on them, she felt a little uncomfortable. She said politely, "CEO, you must be joking. How could we not welcome you? Please sit." The corners of Xiao Tianxing's lips curled up. He sat beside her naturally and ate elegantly. Because of his presence, Xiaonan and Yi Siki became reserved. The two of them ate in silence. He wiped the corners of his mouth elegantly with a napkin and chuckled. "I saw that you were chatting happily just now. Why did you stop talking when I came?" Xiaonan smiled awkwardly. "CEO, Sister Siki and I were talking about girls' matters." Xiao Tianxing turned to look at Yi Siki with a gentle smile. "Is that so?" Yi Siki did not look at him. She just calmly said, Although Xiaonan was naive, she was not stupid. Her gaze went back and forth between the two of them. She finally understood that the CEO's sudden appearance seemed to mean that he had something to say to Sister Siki. She quickly lowered her head and ate. After she hurriedly finished eating, she chuckled. "CEO, Sister Siki, I have something to do. I'll leave first. Take your time." "Okay, see you later." Yi Siki watched as Xiaonan left in a hurry with her tray. She looked at Xiao Tianxing helplessly. "Look at how you scared the little girl. Tell me, why are you looking for me?" Xiao Tianxing took a sip of coffee and raised his eyebrows. "I thought you would thank me first." She remembered that he had helped her out this morning. She smiled. "Thank you." He teased, "I'm not used to you being so obedient." She was speechless. "Why are you so hard to please?" He held back his laughter. "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Let's talk about something serious. Go ahead. I'm all ears." He stopped smiling and looked serious. "Someone purposely got the paparazzi to cause trouble for you. I'm guessing that the negative comments about you online were also purposely released by that person. Her motive is very simple. She wants to smear your reputation and ruin your reputation." Yi Siki clenched her fists slightly. After a long time, she slowly released them and said calmly, "Besides that, she also wants to force me to divorce Lin Shihao. I think I know who the mastermind is." By Mei Wei. This was also a suspect in his heart. She nodded. "At first, I didn't understand why she was willing to use the child to frame me. But when you said that she was the one who got the paparazzi, I suddenly understood. Her motive was to frame me for everything. This way, not only would she be able to clear Shihao's name, but she would also incur the wrath of the Bai family and Jianghu. From there, she would be able to force us to divorce. She's playing a very big game of chess." Xiao Tianxing's slender fingers tapped on the table. There was a slight smile in his deep eyes. "Since you've already guessed it, how do you plan to retaliate?" Welfare Hongcha 866. "Abao, go and do something else." After he hung up, Xiaodong asked in confusion, "Hubby, why did you ask Abao to investigate the doctor who performed the abortion on Bai Mei Wei?" Bailey Han reached out and patted her head. He said gently, "Honey, let me ask you. If you were pregnant and knew that you couldn't have another child after losing the child, and that the child was your only bargaining chip to marry me, would you sacrifice your child to frame someone else?" Xiaodong didn't hesitate. Of course not. In her heart, the child was very important. Bailey Han ruffled her hair. It's a mother's nature to protect her child, but Bai Mei Wei gave up the child that was so important to her. I can't help but suspect. You suspect that she wasn't pregnant at all? Xiaodong suddenly realized and her eyes widened. He smiled. There's another possibility. She lost the child a long time ago, and she used a fake belly to deceive everyone. Didn't you say that Bai Mei Wei's uterus was stunted, and that it was very easy for her to miscarry the child? Yes. Xiaodong's blood boiled. She hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him fiercely. Hubby, you're amazing. You're definitely China's Sherlock Holmes. Bailey Han accepted her compliments without hesitation. At the same time, he accepted her passionate kiss. Furthermore, he took the initiative and kissed her lips passionately for a long time. Only when both of them were out of breath did he let go of her. He rested his chin on her neck and said in a husky and magnetic voice, "Honey, do you want to watch that video together?" She hugged his waist. Yes. He hugged her and stood up from the sofa. He sat behind his desk and let her sit on his lap. Then he turned on his computer and checked the email that Bao had sent him. In the corner of the video there was a date. It was the day Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei attended the conference. In the video, Bai Meiwei was holding a glass of water in her left hand and standing in a secluded spot. Her right hand felt around in her handbag a few times, and then quickly slid over the rim of the glass. It seemed like she was putting something into the glass. The scene changed. Lin Shihao was sitting on the sofa in the corner of the hall. He leaned against the back of the chair tiredly and held his forehead with one hand. He seemed to be very drunk. He took out his phone and looked like he was about to make a call. Bai Meiwei walked in front of him, bent down and snatched the phone from his hand. The two of them exchanged a few words. Then Bai Meiwei fed the glass of water in her hand to Lin Shihao's mouth. He drank the water until there was not a drop left. Then Bai Meiwei helped Lin Shihao up from the sofa. The two of them had only taken a few steps when Lin Shihao's entire body was paralyzed on Bai Meiwei's shoulder. It was obvious that he had completely lost consciousness. After that, a handsome male waiter helped Bai Meiwei send Lin Shihao upstairs. After that, the video ended. Because there were no cameras in the hotel room, it was a violation of the guest's privacy. Xia Dong gritted her teeth hatefully. It's really as we guessed. Lin Shihao was set up by Bai Meiwei. There's something wrong with the glass of water in her hand. Don't be angry. With this, we can basically prove that Lin Shihao was framed. Bailey Han ruffled her hair. That waiter is also a good witness. Siki said that Bai Jiao is going to sue Lin Shihao tomorrow. Should we quickly reveal this video to Bai Jiao and dispel his thoughts? Bailey Han's deep eyes were cold and his lips curved slightly. There's no hurry. Let him sue. If he doesn't, how can we prove to the world that Lin Shihao is innocent? Bai Jiao wanted to blow the matter up, which was exactly what he wanted. When the time came, the one who would be embarrassed would be Bai Meiwei. Xia Dong wrapped her arms around his neck and looked up at him. But if we blow the matter up to that extent, it won't be good for Lin Shihao and Siki. Right now, everyone has misunderstood Lin Shihao and Yi Siki. Only through legal means can we prove their innocence. Since we can't prevent rumors from spreading, then we'll just have to guide them and use facts to prove who's right and who's wrong. But you've reminded me that this is a matter between the two of them. They should be the ones making the decision. His slender fingers rested on the keyboard. Honey, what's Yi Siki's email address? I'll send this video to her. After sending the video to Yi Siki, Xia Dong immediately called Yi Siki and briefly explained their findings. Finally she said, Yezi, discuss with old Lin and see how we can use this evidence. Okay, I got it. Xia, thank you. This evidence proved that Lin Shihao didn't take the initiative to sexually assault Bai Meiwei. Instead, Bai Meiwei drugged him. This was very important to Yi Siki. Not only could it prove Lin Shihao's innocence, but it could also untie a knot in her heart. After Yi Siki and Lin Shihao discussed it, they unanimously decided to let Bai Jiao take it to court. Bai Meiwei had unscrupulously destroyed their family, so she should pay the price for her actions. Just as they were making this important decision, Lin Shihao suddenly received a call from Tang Chengfeng. Tang Chengfeng said, Shihao, I heard something from my colleague. I think it's very important to you and Siki, so I quickly called you. What is it? Dr. Wang from the Obstetrics and Gynecology Department told me today that Bai Meiwei once had an abortion at her place. It seems like it was a car accident and the child was lost. Later, Bai Meiwei chatted with Dr. Wang for a long time and asked her to help keep the secret. She even wanted to bribe Dr. Wang with money, but Dr. Wang refused. Dr. Wang abided by professional ethics and didn't tell anyone about this until today. She accidentally saw the news about Siki, saying that Siki caused the death of Bai Meiwei's child. She couldn't help but reveal this to me. Lin Shihao suddenly clenched his phone. After the shock, he felt a deep hatred for Bai Meiwei. This woman actually had a fake belly and hid it from them for so long. She even wanted to take the opportunity to hurt Siki. She was simply too hateful. He tried his best to suppress the churning emotions in his heart and said slowly, Chengfeng, thank you for telling me this. After ending the call, Lin Shihao told Siki about Bai Meiwei's miscarriage. Then he said, Honey, I changed my mind. Let's not take it to court. I'm worried that it will implicate Chengfeng. Implicate Chengfeng? What do you mean? Lin Shihao smiled bitterly. After you went to Tibet, I tricked Bai Meiwei into going to Chengfeng's place. I planned to get him to help me forcibly abort the child in Bai Meiwei's belly. In the end, Bai Meiwei found out. She took a scalpel and threatened Cheng Feng to let her go. If this matter goes to court, I'm worried that Bai Meiwei will expose this matter. Cheng Feng is innocent. I can't implicate him. Lin Shihao felt a wave of fear. If Tang Cheng Feng hadn't suddenly called him, he would have almost forgotten about this matter. If he really implicated his good friend because of this, he would never be able to forgive himself. However, Yi Siki saw another layer of this matter through this matter. In order to win her back, Lin Shihao even abandoned the professional ethics that he was so proud of. This made her feel both touched and touched. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 446. Lin Shihao gave up on punishing Bai Meiwei through legal means, but that didn't mean that he wouldn't pursue her responsibility. She framed Siki and made Siki bear infamy, and he would make her pay for it all. That night, Lin Shihao organized the evidence he collected, burned the video into a CD, and anonymously sent it to the television station and major newspapers. The next day, before Bai Jiao could report Lin Shihao to the police station and accuse him of sexually assaulting his daughter, he saw the shocking news in the morning paper. The news said that the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, Lin Shihao, who was deeply involved in the scandal of sexually assaulting a female patient a few days ago, was framed by his colleague Li Lai. The relationship between Lin Shihao and the director's daughter, Bai Meiwei, was also untrue. Lin Shihao was actually drugged by Bai Meiwei and unconsciously had sex with her. In order to destroy Lin Shihao's family, Bai Meiwei pretended to be pregnant when she already had a miscarriage and framed Lin Shihao's wife for harming her child. The report was conclusive and presented evidence, including photos of Bai Meiwei drugging the water and her supporting Lin Shihao to get a room. In addition, there was also the testimony of the hotel staff, proving that she was very sober that night, and Lin Shihao was unconscious and was taken upstairs by her. Most importantly, the name of the person who got the room was Bai Meiwei. It was clear who was plotting against who. Bai Jiao was so angry that he almost died. He angrily slammed the newspaper on the table and roared, "Old Wang, call Miss right now and tell her to get her ass back here." Old Wang was the Bai family's housekeeper. When he heard this, he quickly ran to the landline. At this time, Bai Meiwei was sitting on the sofa in Lin Shihao's house, waiting for Jiang Rulin to make breakfast for her. Because she had a miscarriage, Jiang Rulin served her like an ancestor and didn't let her do anything. She even brought her water to wash her feet. Every time she wanted to help, Jiang Rulin nagged her, saying that a miscarriage was harmful to a woman's body and that she had to take good care of her body. Her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID. It was a call from home. She pressed the answer button. Old Wang's urgent voice came through. "Miss, Master wants you to come back quickly." "Uncle Wang, is my father going to the police station to report the case?" "Help me hold him back, I'll be right back." "No, Mississippi Master saw today's newspaper and called you back in a fit of rage. I don't know the details. No matter what, you should come back first." Newspapers? Fly into a rage? What the hell happened? Bai Meiwei's heart was uneasy. She hurriedly went into the house to change her clothes and took her handbag. When she walked into the living room, Jiang Rulin happened to come out with breakfast. "Meiwei, prepare a delicious breakfast." Bai Meiwei smiled. "Auntie, I'm not eating anymore. My dad just called and asked me to go back. I have to go back quickly." Jiang Rulin was shocked. "Didn't you already persuade your father not to sue Shihao? Now this is—" Bai Meiwei hurriedly said, "Auntie, don't be nervous. My dad didn't ask me to go back because of this matter. My dad is still waiting for me at home. I'll leave first. If there's anything, wait until I come back. Okay, be careful on the road." Jiang Rulin walked her to the door. Jiang Rulin had lived alone for many years and had developed a habit. That was to turn on the television while eating. Listening to the sound from the television made her feel less lonely. She glanced at the sumptuous breakfast on the dining table and sighed silently. She turned on the television. The television was broadcasting the morning news. She didn't listen to it seriously. Turning on the television was just to kill time. Halfway through breakfast, a name suddenly jumped into her ears. Lin Shihao. Wasn't that her son? Jiang Rulin hurriedly put down her bowl and chopsticks and walked quickly to the living room to watch the television. The content of the news was similar to what Bai Jiao had seen in the morning newspaper. The difference was that the television news also broadcast the video from the hotel. There was a surgical record attached, proving that Bai Meiwei had already had an abortion a few months ago. Jiang Rulin was dumbstruck. After a long while she fell onto the sofa. That piece of news had already been broadcasted, but her mind was still replaying the host's words. She had a miscarriage a few months ago. Her face was deathly pale and her lips trembled. After a long time, she barely suppressed the anger in her heart and slammed her fist on the sofa. She gritted her teeth and spat out 2 words, "Bastard." After scolding by Mei Wei, she fiercely slapped herself. She was simply an idiot. After being used by Mei Wei, she said so many hurtful words to her son and daughter-in-law. She simply didn't have the face to face them anymore. The more Jiang Rulin thought about it, the angrier she became. The more she thought about it, the more hatred she felt. She didn't even eat and angrily rushed to the guest room where Mei Wei was staying. She stuffed all her belongings into her suitcase, dragged the suitcase downstairs, and threw it into the trunk of her car. Then she got into the car and sped away. As soon as Mei Wei entered the house, Bai Jiao's furious voice exploded in the air. "Kneel." Mei Wei suddenly froze. She looked at her father sitting on the sofa. His face was full of anger and his pair of dark eyes stared fixedly at her. The ruthlessness in his gaze made people shudder. This was the first time she had seen her father so angry. She quietly clenched her fingers. She had a bad feeling in her heart, but she wore a faint smile on her face. "Dad, what's wrong with you? Who made you angry?" "You're still smiling? You still have the face to smile." Bai Jiao was so angry that he was about to burst into flames. He fiercely threw a stack of newspapers at her face and roared with a red face and neck. "Look at all the good things you've done." The newspapers hit her face, causing a slight sting. She reflexively closed her eyes. The newspapers scattered on the ground. The news about her occupied an entire page. The huge photo of her drugging the cup of water exposed her completely. The fact that she had seduced Lin Shihao was exposed to the world, leaving her with nowhere to hide. Mei Wei's forced calmness collapsed. She took 2 steps back in despair and stared at the newspapers with tears in her eyes. "Kneel." Bai Jiao's angry shout was like thunder. She was so shocked that her whole body trembled. Subconsciously, she fell to her knees in front of him. "You disgraceful thing, all the books you've read all these years have been for nothing. Don't you have any sense of shame?" Bai Jiao was so angry that his blood was boiling. He tightly clutched his chest and roared at his daughter who was kneeling in front of him. Housekeeper Old Wang saw that the situation was not good and hurried upstairs to inform Madame Bai. "Dad, I'm sorry. I was wrong." "I really know that I was wrong." Mei Wei cried bitterly. "Now you know that you were wrong? What were you doing earlier? Look at you now. Do you still look like a rich miss? All my years of hard work have been wasted." Bai Jiao only had this one daughter and he had high hopes for her. Who would have thought that the daughter he had always been proud of would do such a despicable thing? How could he not be angry? How could he not hate her? The more Bai Jiao thought about it, the angrier he became. His eyes were red and he raised his arm high to slap her face. "Stop!" Madame Bai hurriedly came down from upstairs. Just as she reached the staircase, she saw this scene and hurriedly stopped him. Bai Jiao's arm trembled, but in the end, it did not land on his daughter's face. He angrily pointed at his wife who had hurried over and said angrily, "This is your good daughter. Look at what she has done." Madame Bai glanced at the newspaper scattered on the floor and was shocked. She quickly bent down to pick up the newspaper and quickly skimmed through it. Her fingers could not help but tremble. In the end, she could not take the blow and her body swayed, almost fainting. Bai Jiao hurriedly helped her sit down. Mei Wei cried and hugged her leg. "Mom, don't be agitated. I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Madame Bai leaned on Bai Jiao's shoulder and tears poured out. She kept muttering, "How could this be? What should we do?" Mei Wei buried her head in guilt and sobbed. The Bai family was shrouded in a gloomy fog. Madame Bai and Mei Wei only cared about crying. After Bai Jiao's anger, he wanted to clean up the mess for his daughter. He picked up the landline and was about to call someone to help. "Madam, you can't go in." A woman dragged a suitcase and angrily barged into the villa. The servants anxiously tried to stop her but were unsuccessful. The woman fiercely threw the suitcase, making a loud bang sound. The Bai family all looked up at her. Bai Jiao stared at her and saw that it was Lin Shihao's mother, Jiang Rulin. He stiffly put down the landline and said with a sullen face, "Mrs. Lin, what do you mean by this?" Jiang Rulin was furious. She pointed at Mei Wei and said angrily, "Bai Jiao, ask your good daughter what she has done." Mei Wei trembled. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at Jiang Rulin with pleading eyes. Auntie, I'm sorry. I lied to you. I did this because I love Senior too much. Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Rulin had already rushed in front of her and slapped her hard on her fair face. She roared angrily, "Love him? I think you're clearly harming him. He has a happy family and an enviable job, but now you're the one who ruined everything." This slap carried the weight of Jiang Rulin's anger and was extremely lethal. Bai Meiwei was already kneeling on the ground. After being hit like this, she directly lay on the ground. She covered her cheek and sobbed bitterly. Madame Bai threw herself to her daughter's side and stood in front of her. She said sternly, "That's enough, Jiang Rulin. Don't go too far." "Am I going too far, or is your good daughter going too far? It's precisely because of parents like you who can't tell right from wrong that you raised such a shameless daughter." Jiang Rulin pointed at Bai Jiao and his wife's noses and scolded them, venting all her anger on them. Bai Jiao's face alternated between red and white. His fingers clenched tightly on the sofa's armrest. He was so angry that his chest rose and fell rapidly. He wanted to refute, but he had nothing to say because Jiang Rulin's words stabbed at his sore spot. Even if Madame Bai was in the wrong, she wasn't the kind of person who would allow others to scold her. She stood up abruptly and confronted Jiang Rulin with her gaze. "Jiang Rulin, I admit that Meiwei did something wrong, but if you didn't stir things up, Lin Shihao and his wife wouldn't have fallen to this state today. Don't make it sound so nice and push all the blame onto Meiwei. You should also reflect on yourself." Beauty novel Xinwu 799. Chapter 447. Madame Bai's words undoubtedly poked Jiang Rulin's sore spot. She was full of guilt towards her son and daughter-in-law. Her cheeks were burning, but in the face of her enemy she was still domineering. She put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "That's our family's business. We don't need you to talk about it. Now we're talking about your daughter. Bai Meiwei, tell us. Our family is so miserable because of you. What do you plan to do?" "I'm sorry, Auntie. Please forgive me." Although Bai Meiwei was very unwilling, she knew that once the matter was exposed, it would mean that she could no longer be with Lin Shihao. She cried very sadly, really sadly. "If an apology is useful, why do we need the police? I'm telling you, I won't let this go." Jiang Rulin thought of Bai Jiao threatening her son with the police and her heart was filled with anger. Madame Bai's face turned pale and she said anxiously, "What else do you want to do? Meiwei's reputation is ruined now. She's already very pitiful. She asked for it." Jiang Rulin glanced coldly at Bai Meiwei who was burying her head and crying. She didn't want to be entangled with them and turned to leave. "Hey Jiang Rulin, stop right there." Madame Bai was anxious and angry. She strode forward and blocked Jiang Rulin. "Say it clearly. What do you want?" Jiang Rulin snorted. "Don't you like to threaten people with the police? Fine, let's go to court. Let's see who's the ugly one." "You don't go too far," Madame Bai pointed a trembling finger at her nose. Suddenly, her vision turned black and she collapsed on the ground. "Mom, wife," Bai Jiao and Bai Meiwei shouted at the same time and rushed over in panic. Jiang Rulin watched as Madame Bai collapsed in front of her. She clenched her fingers and restrained herself. She didn't go forward to help her. When she came out of the Bai family's villa, she could still hear Bai Jiao's anxious voice. "Hurry, help me help your mother to the sofa." On the way home, Jiang Rulin's emotions had already calmed down. In fact, she had said something about going to court just to scare the Bai family. She knew very well that even if they went to court, Bai Meiwei's mistakes would at most constitute a false accusation. She wouldn't be severely punished, so it didn't mean much. Instead, it would push Shihao and Siki to the forefront of the storm and affect their normal lives. Now that Bai Meiwei's true colors had been exposed and she was being condemned by the public, this was already the greatest punishment for her. On second thought, she had also done a lot of things to Shihao and Siki. Now she really didn't have the face to face them. Jiang Rulin sighed deeply. Exposing Bai Meiwei's true colors was only the first step of Lin Shihao's plan. The second step was to report to the police station and accuse Li Donghai of deliberately fabricating and spreading false facts to degrade his character and slander his reputation. That day, the police took Li Donghai away from the hospital for framing him. At the police station, Li Donghai did not admit to the crime of slandering Lin Shihao. Later, in front of the ironclad evidence collected by Bailey Han, he finally pleaded guilty. The police asked him, "Why did you do this?" Li Donghai was expressionless. "I couldn't accept it. I entered the hospital a year earlier than Lin Shihao. In terms of ability, I'm not inferior to him. In terms of seniority, I'm older than him. Why did he become the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department while I could only be the deputy director? Later I found the answer. It was because he was favored by Mei Wei. For the sake of his daughter, Bai Jiao even planned to groom him to become the next director. I looked down on men who relied on women to get to the top, so I decided to take revenge on him. Driven by jealousy, Li Donghai did something to harm others' reputation and was sentenced to 2 years in prison for framing him. After the truth came to light, the hospital board dismissed Li Donghai and restored Lin Shihao's position. Unexpectedly, on the first day of work, Lin Shihao handed in his resignation letter. In the director's office, Bai Jiao sat behind his desk. There was a lot of white hair on his head, and there was an imperceptible tiredness in his eyes. He put down the resignation letter, looked at Lin Shihao and said, "Little Lin, your matter has been investigated clearly. Why do you still want to resign?" Lin Shihao's expression was calm as he said slowly, "Director, although the facts have proven that I'm innocent after this incident, the patient will still have a certain amount of resentment in her heart. I think that I'm no longer suitable to work in the hospital." As a gynecologist, men were very sensitive. Coupled with the impact of that incident, the patient or the patient's family would more or less feel a little uncomfortable. Bai Jiao's deep gaze fell on him. After a moment of silence, he said, "Tell me honestly, is it because Mei Wei and I are in this hospital that you're very troubled?" "Yes." Lin Shihao's gaze was calm. This was also one of the reasons he resigned. Bai Jiao was startled and sighed. "Okay, I agree to your resignation." He signed the resignation letter. Lin Shihao said goodbye and left. Bai Jiao looked at his back and hesitated for a long time before finally saying, "Little Lin, I apologize to you on behalf of Mei Wei. Please, be magnanimous and let her go." Lin Shihao stopped in his tracks. Without turning back, he said in a cold voice, "If you're referring to taking it to court, you can rest assured." Bai Jiao looked at his back in a daze. His throat felt uncomfortable. He opened his mouth and said, "Thank you." Lin Shihao didn't say anything. He opened the door and strode out. Walking in the corridor of the hospital and looking at the patients coming and going around, Lin Shihao felt a little disappointed. He had chosen this career to make more families happy. He worked day and night and even neglected his own family. Now that he had decided to quit this career, he still felt a little sad. Yisiki came home from work and saw Lin Shihao in an apron cutting vegetables in the kitchen. She casually put her handbag on the coffee table and said in surprise, "Didn't you go to work today? Why are you back so early?" Lin Shihao's lips curved. "I resigned." "Resigned? What?" Lin Shihao put down the kitchen knife and looked at her with a smile. "Firstly, it's too tiring to be a doctor. I don't have enough time for myself. I want to change jobs so that I can take care of you and our child. Secondly, didn't Mom always say that no one will inherit the restaurant? I've been willful for so many years. It's time for me to shoulder this burden. That way she wouldn't force Siki to have a son anymore. But you like this career. Are you really willing to resign? There's nothing to be reluctant about. I'm tired of doing it anyway." There was a faint smile on his handsome face, as if he was very happy to resign. However, he couldn't fool Yisiki because she knew him and knew how much he loved his job. She felt a little sad and said slowly, "Is it because of that incident that you can't face the patients?" "No." His smile didn't change. He wiped his hands and approached her, then hugged her. "Don't let your imagination run wild. I'm just tired and want to change jobs. Will you be happy if you change jobs?" She leaned against his chest, wanting to hear his thoughts. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "Work isn't important. As long as our family is well, I'll be happy no matter what I do." He had saved so many people and fulfilled his ambitions. He had no regrets. The only thing he wanted to do now was to protect his family. The couple welcomed the dawn, but Mei Wei had fallen into the mud of life. She was now notorious in a city and was jokingly called Sister Aphrodisiac. Li Donghao, who slandered Lin Shihao, also had a very appropriate nickname, Brother Harassment, which meant that he used slander to harass innocent people. There were also people who joked that Sister Aphrodisiac and Brother Harassment were true love. Bai Jiao had a headache whenever he saw his daughter. He didn't give her a good look. Madame Bai didn't criticize her too much, but she sighed all day and wiped her tears when she saw her, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Her former friends all looked down on her and cut off contact with her. Only Bailey Fei Yen still foolishly contacted her and asked her to go out to play. Bai Meiwei felt uncomfortable, so she agreed to go out with Bailey Fei Yen to relax. Bailey Fei Yen drove to pick her up. Meiwei, let's go to Charming Club. Let's change to a quieter bar. The boss of Charming Club was Xiao Tianxing. She didn't want to go there and be laughed at by him. Well, I went to a bar with a friend some time ago. It's very quiet. Let's go there. The bar Bailey Fei Yen took her to was called Style. It was indeed very quiet. The resident singer played the guitar and sang nostalgic songs. A couple sat in a semi-enclosed box, whispering. They also entered the box and ordered a dozen beers. Bai Meiwei poured a glass of wine for Bailey Fei Yen and bitterly hooked her lips. Fei Yen, I am very grateful to you. Until now you are still my friend. Good friends don't be so polite. Bailey Fei Yen raised his wine cup and touched hers, saying, let's not talk about those unhappy things. Come, let's drink. Okay. Bai Meiwei raised her head and took a big gulp. Her alcohol tolerance was not bad, she could drink at least 3 or 4 bottles of beer. The two of them drank and chatted. Unknowingly, it was already past 10 o'clock at night. Bai Meiwei looked at her watch. It was already late. She was already a criminal. If she returned late, her parents would be angered to death. She quickly pulled Bailey Fei Yan's arm and said, Fei Yan, it's getting late. We should go back. But I haven't played enough. Bailey Fei Yan's alcohol tolerance was not as good as hers. She was already dizzy. We'll play again next time. Let's go home first tonight. Be good. Bai Meiwei helped her up and the two of them stumbled out of the bar. This bar street was very lively at night. It was now the time for people to get drunk. As soon as the two of them walked out of the bar, several men surrounded them, laughing and chatting. Bai Meiwei ignored them. Those people did not give up and followed behind them. Bai Meiwei turned a deaf ear and helped Bailey Fei Yen to the parking lot. She put her in the car and got in as well. Only then did the group give up. Powerful novel Songshu 566. Chapter 448. Bai Meiwei was about to start the car when she suddenly remembered that she was drunk and could not drive. She had to call for a designated driver. Please send her to this address. Bai Meiwei gave the address and paid the driver. She lived in the opposite direction from the Bailey's house, so she asked the designated driver to send Fei Yen home while she took a taxi home. The designated driver drove away and Bai Meiwei walked to the intersection to wait for a taxi. It was a little cold at night and when the cold wind blew, she could not help but shiver and her drunkenness dissipated a little. Beauty, you haven't gone home yet. Have some fun with us bros before you leave. A sloppy voice came from behind and a few men surrounded her. Bai Meiwei recognized them as the 4 men who had surrounded her and Fei Yen earlier. She frowned and did not say a word as she picked up her handbag and walked away. Don't go. Suddenly, an arm reached out and grabbed her wrist. Then, with a jerk, she stumbled into the man's arms. A whiff of alcohol wafted into her nose. It seemed that the group of people had drunk a lot as well. Get lost, don't touch me. Although Bai Meiwei was a little dizzy, she was still very sober and pushed the man who was hugging her away. The man's looks could be considered decent. His flowery shirt and suit jacket made him look like a ruffian. He chuckled and hugged her even tighter. Beauty, I know you. Aren't you the online celebrity sister Aphrodisiac? Us bros don't need you to drug us today and we can make you feel like you're in heaven? Bai Meiwei was angry and scared. She raised her hand and slapped the man across the face, then stomped on his foot. When he let go of her in pain, she quickly turned and ran away. The man hugged his foot and grimaced in pain. Damn, this woman is quite powerful. Brothers, chase after her. Bai Meiwei grabbed Bao Feng and ran like crazy, shouting help as she ran. Unfortunately, most of the people in this area were drunk and the few who were sober were here for fun. They did not want to get into trouble and for a moment, no one reached out to help her and no one cared whether she lived or died. The footsteps were getting closer and closer to her, and her heart was in her throat. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was to run faster and faster. Otherwise, if those hooligans caught up with her, she would definitely not have a good ending. Right, call the police. As she ran in the wind, she frantically took out her phone from her handbag. Before she could call the police, someone grabbed her hair from behind and she screamed in pain. Bitch, let's see where you can run to. The man who was panting and grabbing her hair was wearing a golden necklace that was as thick as a finger. He looked very rough. He snatched the phone from her hand and threw it to the ground. He even stomped on it twice. Then came a young man with dyed yellow hair. He held his knees with both hands and panted. After a while, he spat on the ground and said, F***ck, this girl doesn't know what's good for her. Now that she's in our hands, we have to teach her a lesson. With her hair in the hands of the rough man and her hands tightly grasped by the blonde, Bai Meiwei had nowhere to run. She begged pitifully, please let me go. I'll give you all the money you want. The blonde said disdainfully, humph, so what if you're rich? We're not short of money. Atian, get her into the car. The four of them scrambled to get her into a black car. Bai Meiwei cried and struggled in the car. Please let me go. I'll give you anything you want. The rough man said unhappily, stupid bitch, your crying is so annoying. Hoodlum, feed her the medicine. I guarantee she'll be obedient in a while. Hoodlum took out a medicine bottle from his trouser pocket, poured out a few pills and stuffed them into Bai Meiwei's mouth. She shook her head, gritted her teeth and refused to take them. She even kicked him. The one in the flowery shirt was called Crooked Old. He came over and forcefully pinched her chin, pried open her mouth and stuffed the pills into her mouth. To prevent her from spitting out the pills, he covered her mouth with one hand and used the other to forcefully slap her neck, forcing her to swallow the pills. She choked until tears flowed out and she coughed uncomfortably. Bastard, what did you give me to eat? Hehe, it's for aphrodisiac, sister. Of course it's aphrodisiac. Just wait and see. You bastards. Bai Meiwei was terrified. She punched and kicked, wanting to stop the men from getting close to her. However, she quickly discovered that the medicine in her body was starting to take effect. Her body temperature rose and her body felt light. There was a very empty feeling in her abdomen, and a strange itchy feeling slowly spread. The men sharply discovered the changes in her body, and like hungry wolves they pounced on her body. I know. She wanted to resist but her body was powerless. Even the fists she waved were like cotton, soft and without any strength. Her clothes were thrown into the car one by one. Under the influence of the medicine, her consciousness began to blur, and only desire remained in her mind. Ah! Bai Meiwei's body tensed up. She raised her neck and let out a painful and joyful sound. Atian, who was in charge of driving, saw this scene through the rearview mirror and burst out with a curse. F***ck, you three, take it easy. At least leave me a mouthful. F***ck, you should drive seriously. It'll be your turn later. Hoodlum fiercely slammed into the car while panting as he replied. In the narrow space of the car, there was a decadent atmosphere, and it let out sounds that made people blush and their hearts beat faster. An hour later, the car stopped in a small forest. Two men threw the unconscious Bai Meiwei into the bushes by the side of the road. Enough, don't kill her. Atian, who had already tidied up, knocked on old Crooked Old's head. Hurry up and leave. Don't let anyone find out. The four of them quickly jumped into the car and drove out of the forest. Bai Meiwei was abandoned here. It was already 12 o'clock and Bai Meiwei had not returned home. Madame Bai was worried and called Bailey Fei Yan's house. Bailey Fei Yan's servant said, Madame Bai, our family's miss has returned. The one who sent her back was a designated driver. The driver said that Miss Bai hired him. Madame Bai had a bad premonition in her heart. Since Bailey Fei Yan had returned, then Bai Meiwei should also be back. Could it be that she met with an accident on the road? Madame Bai frantically woke Bai Jiao up. Hubby, Bai Meiwei has not returned home yet. Could something have happened? Bai Jiao suddenly woke up. Bailey Fei Yan has returned home? Yes, Meiwei found a designated driver to send her back. What should we do? Something must have happened to Meiwei. Madame Bai became more anxious as she spoke. Calm down first. I'll go out and look for her. Bai Jiao quickly got out of bed and changed his clothes. It's the middle of the night. Where are you going to look for her? I think it's better to call the police first. It's no use even if you call the police. Meiwei has been missing for less than 24 hours. The police station will not file a case. Bai Jiao said as he put on his coat. Call Bailey's house and ask where Fei Yan and the others played last night. Madame Bai called Bailey Fei Yan's mother, Murong Lan. Murong Lan woke her daughter up and asked her for the address. Then she told Madame Bai. Bai Jiao called a few servants and drove to the area Fei Yan said to look for Bai Meiwei. Although it was already past 12 o'clock, the bar street was still very lively. The servants took Bai Meiwei's photo and asked around, but no one knew her whereabouts. It was already early in the morning. Madame Bai stood at the door with a shawl, waiting anxiously. The landline in the living room suddenly rang. She was shocked and rushed to the living room to answer the phone. It was Bai Jiao. His voice sounded tired and helpless. I still haven't found Meiwei's whereabouts. What should we do? My daughter must have met with an accident. Madame Bai held the phone and cried in panic. Don't worry. I've asked a friend to find an acquaintance in the police station to help find her. At this time they couldn't find Bai Meiwei anywhere. She was still lying unconscious in the grass. She was completely naked and her fair skin was covered with bruises. She was lying there motionless as if she was dead. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 449. In the park there were many old people practicing Tai Chi in the morning. There were also some young people doing morning exercises. A young girl, wearing sportswear and headphones, was running in the woods while listening to music. She inadvertently found something hidden in the grass on the side of the road, so she curiously ran over. When she saw what it was, she screamed in horror. Ah! Someone come, there's a dead person here. The girl's face was pale. She retreated in horror and stood on the edge of the lawn and shouted. Her scream attracted several old people. The old people carefully went forward and saw a white body lying on the lawn. The black waterfall-like long hair covered the face. The body was full of scars. It must have been ravaged. The old people were shocked and regretful. Some took off their coat and put it on the corpse. Some people took out their mobile phones and called the police. The police quickly arrived. When they were about to carry the corpse into the car, they found that the body was still warm. She's still breathing. She's not dead. Hurry up and carry her to the car. Fortunately, there was a forensic doctor who knew how to use first aid. Bai Jiao was still looking for his missing daughter when he suddenly received a call from a stranger. The other party claimed to be a police officer. He said that his daughter had been found and asked him to go to the hospital immediately. Bai Jiao and his wife rushed to the hospital. Bai Meiwei was still in a coma. Her body was full of tubes and there were obvious scars on her face. When the doctor told them that Bai Meiwei had been sexually assaulted and her lower body was bleeding and her genitals were torn, Mrs. Bai immediately fainted. Bai Jiao's face was pale and he almost fell to the ground. In the corridor of the hospital, a policewoman asked Bai Jiao about the situation on the night of the incident. Bai Jiao was in tears. His heart was full of self-blame. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have neglected Meiwei. She was in a bad mood and went out with her friends to relax. After getting drunk in the bar, she asked a driver to send her friends home. It's all my fault. Bai Lao, don't blame yourself too much. It's not your fault that this happened. The policewoman comforted him and asked, who was the friend who went out with Miss Bai last night? Her name is Bailey Fei Yen. The policewoman asked a few more questions and then said, Bai Lao, don't be sad. We will find the culprit as soon as possible and bring them to justice. Bai Jiao's eyes were filled with sorrow as he reluctantly nodded. Thank you for your hard work. Bai Meiwei lay in bed for a whole day and still did not wake up. The doctor extracted the body fluids of the rapists from her lower body. After testing, he concluded that there were at least 4 people who had raped her. Bai Jiao could no longer bear the blow and fainted on the spot. When he woke up, it was as if he had suddenly aged 10 years. His old face was covered with frost, and his pair of originally bright eyes no longer had the luster of the past. Due to the vile nature of this case and the fact that the victim was the daughter of the city's prestigious family, Miss, it attracted the attention of the chief of police. He ordered a strict investigation of the case and the criminal to be brought to justice as soon as possible. After being in a coma for more than 40 hours, Bai Meiwei finally regained consciousness. Madame Bai, who had been keeping watch by her bedside, saw her open her eyes. Tears fell from her eyes as she sobbed, Meiwei, you're finally awake. It's good that you're awake, it's good that you're awake. Bai Meiwei acted as if she didn't know her. She stared at her blankly without any reaction. Meiwei, what's wrong? I'm your mother. Seeing her like this, Madame Bai felt uneasy. She carefully caressed her daughter's face. Meiwei, does it hurt a lot? Wait a moment, I'll call the doctor over. Bai Meiwei's eyes were blank as she stared at her blankly. Madame Bai felt that something was wrong and quickly called the doctor. The doctor was a man. When he reached out to examine Bai Meiwei suddenly trembled all over. She hugged her head with both hands and screamed. Her screams were filled with fear. Madame Bai's heart ached so much that she almost stopped breathing. She threw herself on her and hugged her tightly. Meiwei, don't be afraid. Mother is here. No one can hurt you again. Ah. Bai Meiwei shook her head violently and screamed crazily. Her feet fiercely kicked the blanket. Madame Bai's tears fell. She hugged her daughter tightly and endured the immense heartache as she comforted her over and over again. But Bai Meiwei's emotions were too agitated. Madame Bai couldn't hold her down at all. The doctor could only inject her with a tranquilizer to prevent her from hurting herself. Bai Meiwei fell into a deep sleep. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and her face was filled with pain. Madame Bai stood by the bed, her right hand covering her mouth as she cried bitterly. After a series of examinations, the doctor made a diagnosis. Bai Meiwei had suffered such a huge blow that she had lost her mind. Bai Jiao had cured many illnesses and saved many people in his life. The only thing he couldn't heal was the wound in his daughter's heart. He was hesitant and in pain. He couldn't wait to tear those bastards who had humiliated his daughter into pieces. A week later, the 4 men who had gang-raped Bai Meiwei were arrested. They were all small leaders of some underworld gang. After they were arrested, there were people from the underworld who threatened Bai Jiao, telling him to withdraw the charges. Otherwise they would set fire to his family. Bai Jiao didn't take their threats to heart. Even if he had to risk his old life, he would seek justice for his daughter. During the investigation of the case, the police found that the 4 men had also gang-raped other women. They were also involved in kidnapping, robbery, and other criminal cases. In the end, the court sentenced them to prison for 10 to 15 years. Even if the 4 men were punished by the law, it still couldn't heal the damage Bai Meiwei had suffered. Although she had been discharged from the hospital, her mental state was still very bad. In the past she was cheerful and lively. Now she had become taciturn and didn't want to see people. She often sat in front of the window in a daze. She wasn't interested in the people and things around her. She was paranoid all day long, always feeling that someone wanted to harm her. Bai Jiao suggested that she be sent to a mental hospital to receive systematic treatment, but Madame Bai firmly refused. Meiwei isn't crazy. You can't send her there. She's only temporarily mentally ill. She'll get better. I've already asked a friend to contact a very good psychiatrist. He will help Meiwei recover. Bai Jiao sighed. Just when he was about to persuade her, he suddenly heard a loud bang, followed by a servant's horrified cry. Not good. Miss jumped off the building. Bai Jiao's face was ashen as he ran out. Madame Bai's vision turned black as she clenched her teeth and stumbled after him. Blood, so much blood. Bai Meiwei was lying on the concrete floor. Her seaweed-like hair was wrapped around her face and neck. Her eyes were wide open, and her body was violently twitching with blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. Bai Jiao screamed at the top of his lungs, "Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance!" When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics carried Bai Meiwei, who was covered in blood, into the ambulance and anxiously gave first aid. Bai Jiao also got into the ambulance. Madame Bai also wanted to follow. Her legs were trembling as if she could collapse at any moment. Bai Jiao refused to let her get into the ambulance and got the servant to help her back to her room to rest. Fortunately, they lived in a villa, and the building wasn't high. Bai Meiwei's life wasn't in danger when she jumped from the roof. However, her external injuries were more serious. Her legs were severely fractured, her waist was injured, and there were many cartilage injuries. Bai Meiwei's world weariness was a wake-up call for Bai Jiao. He decided to send his daughter to a mental hospital for treatment as soon as her injuries were better. After a year of treatment, Bai Meiwei's legs were finally healed and she was able to stand up again. In this year, she had also undergone psychological treatment. Basically, she was no different from an ordinary person. However, she still couldn't face the past. Her nerves were still weak and she couldn't be stimulated. In order to let Bai Meiwei live in a new environment, the Bai family migrated to Canada and cut off all contact with the country. From then on, Bai Meiwei completely walked out of the Lin family's sight. On the other side, Lin Shihao quit his job without hesitation and took the initiative to ask Jiang Rulin to take over the restaurant. Jiang Rulin was happy and a little ashamed. She said apologetically, "Shihao, Mom was used by Bai Meiwei in the past and said a lot of things to hurt you and Siki. Can you forgive Mom?" Lin Shihao was silent for 2 seconds before he said, "Mom, let's not talk about the past. I hope you won't target Siki in the future." "Of course. After so many things I've thought it through. It's enough for you to have one child, Nyonyo. I won't force you to have another child." Jiang Rulin paused and said, "How long do you plan to live outside?" Lin Shihao was a little helpless. Siki said that she doesn't want to come home for the time being. I don't want to force her. Jiang Rulin's expression froze and she sighed. In the end, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have called Bai Meiwei home. It's normal for Siki to have a knot in her heart. Lin Shihao didn't say anything. He knew very well that Siki didn't want to come home not only because of that. The hurt they had caused her made her not dare to believe in love and family. What he needed to do was to rebuild her confidence. Jiang Rulin also had a plan in her heart and secretly made a decision. Yi Siki and Nyonyo walked out of the elevator and saw a familiar figure standing at the door of their house. She was stunned, but Nyonyo had already jumped up happily. "Grandma, Io Xiaobaobei, Grandma missed you so much." Jiang Rulin bent down and hugged Nyonyo. She was all smiles as she kissed Nyonyo twice on the face. "Grandma, I missed you too." Nyonyo acted coquettishly in her arms. Yi Siki looked at the happy faces of the grandmother and granddaughter and smiled slightly. "You're here." She still had a grudge against her and couldn't call her mom like she used to, so she might as well not call her that. Jiang Rulin straightened up and took Nyonyo's hand. She smiled and said, "How have you and Nyonyo been recently? Have you gotten used to living outside?" "Pretty good. Sorry for making you worry." Yi Siki spoke very politely. She took out her keys from her handbag, opened the door and politely invited her in. Jiang Rulin and Nyonyo sat on the sofa and looked around the room. Yi Siki placed the cut fruits on the coffee table and smiled politely. "Have some fruits." "Okay, Siki, come sit here. Mom has a few words to say to you." Jiang Rulin stroked Nyonyo's hair. "Darling, go back to your room and do your homework first, okay?" "Okay." The living room was very quiet. The two of them sat facing each other and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Jiang Rulin smiled gently. "Siki, I haven't come to see you during this time because I feel ashamed to see you." Yi Siki didn't expect her to be so direct and was stunned. She continued, "I went too far in the past and hurt your feelings. I'm here today to apologize to you." Her gaze was very sincere. Yi Siki pursed her lips and smiled slowly. "You're too polite. Let bygones be bygones." Jiang Rulin grabbed her hand, and her eyes were filled with eagerness. "Siki, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to reconcile with Shihao and come home as soon as possible. Living outside is not a long-term solution." Yi Siki was silent for a moment and said slowly, "Shihao and I have reconciled. It's just that I don't want to go back for the time being. I want to adjust my mood. Please understand." Jiang Rulin sighed silently. From the moment they met until now, Siki hadn't called her mom. She felt a little upset, but this was her own fault, so she couldn't blame anyone else. She took out a key from her bag and placed it in front of Yi Siki. She said slowly, "Go back and take a look when you have time. I bought new furniture and replaced all the old ones. If you don't like it, tell me and I'll replace it. In the future, that place will only be your Shihao's and Nyonyo's home." Yi Siki was slightly taken aback, but she quickly understood what Jiang Rulin meant. She must have thought that she minded that Bai Meiwei had lived there before, so she replaced all the old furniture with new ones. Yi Siki pursed her lips and said, "Actually, you didn't have to do this." Jiang Rulin smiled. "It's okay. It didn't cost much anyway. It's fine as long as you live comfortably." Yi Siki didn't continue this topic. "You can stay here for dinner tonight. Shihao will be back soon. He just took over the restaurant and needs to familiarize himself with a lot of things. You can teach him." Jiang Rulin's smile widened. "Okay, then I'll stay for dinner." It had been a long time since their family had gathered together for a meal so harmoniously. It was obvious that Jiang Rulin wanted to get closer to Yi Siki. During the meal, Jiang Rulin kept putting food in Yi Siki's bowl and talked about topics that everyone was interested in. After the meal, Jiang Rulin even took the initiative to help Yi Siki clean up the dishes. However, Yi Siki was not used to Jiang Rulin's enthusiasm and friendliness. After dinner, they rested for a while. It was getting late. Lin Shihao walked Jiang Rulin downstairs and Yi Siki walked them to the elevator. Although he still didn't call her mom, his attitude was more affectionate. Only the mother and son were in the elevator. Jiang Rulin glanced at Lin Shihao and said, "Shihao, are you still staying upstairs tonight?" Lin Shihao gave an indifferent, You can't just do things step by step. Go and speed things up. Get my daughter-in-law back soon." Jiang Rulin patted him on the arm. Xinwu 799. Chapter 450. You can't just do things step by step like this. Hurry up and bring my daughter-in-law back as soon as possible. Jiang Rulin patted his arm. Lin Shihao's eyes flickered slightly. Jiang Rulin smiled meaningfully. Just then the elevator doors opened. She walked out of the elevator and pressed the button to close the doors without waiting for him to come out. Go up and hurry up. Standing in the empty elevator, Lin Shihao couldn't help but laugh as he watched the floors continue to rise. He raised the corners of his lips. It was time to hurry up. Otherwise, who knew how long that little woman would continue to hide? Since he kept staying at Yisiki's house, she simply gave him a key. After he went upstairs, he used the key to open the door. The living room was empty. His daughter should have returned to her room. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. He opened the bathroom door and saw Yisiki standing by the sink. She was scrubbing Nyo-Nyo's undergarments with her hands. The washing machine beside her was making a buzzing sound. Lin Shihao understood her habits. She washed their family of three's undergarments by hand. She said that it was healthier and more hygienic. She looked very focused. Her smooth hair fell over her shoulders, and her eyes were gentle. Looking at her gentle appearance, his heart was unbelievably soft. The corners of his lips curved. He walked behind her and slowly wrapped his arms around her slender waist. His chest was close to her back. His nose was close to her hair, and he smelled the faint fragrance on her body. Yisiki paused. She leaned into his arms and her body was a little stiff. She pursed her lips and said softly, "Your mother left?" "She's our mother." Lin Shihao sighed in his heart. He kissed her cheek from behind and was incomparably gentle. The kiss on her cheek was very gentle, like a feather gently brushing past. It was ticklish. She couldn't help but tremble. She turned her head to avoid him. "You should go back. I want to stay a little longer." He didn't give up. When she turned her face to avoid his lips, he quietly sucked on her earlobe. "Don't, I'm doing the laundry." Yisiki moved her body, trying to avoid his kiss. "Wifey, I love you." Lin Shihao's arms tightened as he whispered in her ear. This was the woman he had loved for 10 years. When he had just entered university, he had fallen in love with her at first sight. Later, he had been lurking by her side as a friend until she became his girlfriend, his wife, and the mother of his child. His feelings for her had never changed. Lin Shihao couldn't restrain the throbbing of his heart. He kissed her neck, and the big hand on her waist also became restless. He quietly rubbed the skin of her waist, using his palm to measure her enchanting curves. She was immersed in the emotions he brought to her, but she was still rational. She grabbed his hands and tried to stop him. Her voice was trembling. "Hubby, don't. Nyo-Nyo will find out." How could she restrain him with her strength? His palm was still lingering on her waist, slowly moving upwards. His delicate kisses landed on her neck as he whispered hoarsely, "Honey, I missed you so much." "Didn't you miss me?" He knew that she was doing something and Nyo-Nyo wasn't asleep yet, but he actually used such a seductive voice to tease her. Her cheeks were boiling hot and her heart trembled. Her chest was so tight that it felt like it was going to explode. He was obviously not satisfied with her reaction. He bit her earlobe as a punishment and pressed his palm on her softness. His voice was full of bewitchment. "Honey, tell me, did you miss my body?" He said the last two words very slowly. She was so embarrassed that her cheeks were red. Her body felt like it was on fire and it was so hot that it was scary. She trembled and closed her eyes, not daring to look at herself in the mirror. He wouldn't stop until he got an answer from her. His slender fingers slowly traced the outline of her body. "Wifey, answer me. Do you miss my body?" Her face was so red that it was about to bleed. She bit her lip and whispered, "Don't say any more." He guided her unscrupulously, his deep black eyes filled with lust. She was so embarrassed that she was about to cry. Her eyelashes couldn't stop trembling. Don't move." He looked up at her in the mirror and coaxed gently, "Honey, open your eyes and look at yourself. You're so beautiful right now." She shook her head. "No." He exerted a little force and a numb feeling spread from his palm to her entire body. Her body trembled. He said mischievously, "Honey, open your eyes. Otherwise I'll continue." In the end, Yisiki couldn't resist his teasing. She slowly opened her eyes and saw herself in the mirror. Her eyes were misty, her cheeks were red, and a few strands of messy hair fell by her ears. Her red and swollen lips were slightly parted, and her chin was slightly raised. She exuded a kind of seductive beauty. He smiled at her in the mirror and then leaned over her chest. She cried out softly and raised her chin impatiently. The two of them in the mirror were entangled together, and it was a mesmerizing scene. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. "Mommy, are you inside?" Yisiki's body tensed up, and her eyes suddenly opened. Lin Shihao was holding her and panting heavily. She opened her mouth and her voice was a little hoarse. I'm here. Mommy, I want to go to the toilet. Nyonyo's voice sounded a little anxious. A certain someone suddenly moved. Isiki let out a soft moan and said anxiously, Nyonyo, Mommy still needs a while. Go to Mommy's room. Isiki was glad that the master bedroom had a toilet. Okay. The sound of Nyonyo's running footsteps came from outside the door. Isiki pinched a certain someone's waist in annoyance. It's all your fault. Nyonyo almost found out. Lin Shihao was helpless. After all, this was a rented apartment, and the soundproofing was not as good as his own. Fortunately, the washing machine was still humming, so Nyonyo did not hear anything that she should not have heard. After enduring for several months, he had originally planned to have a good time, but reality was cruel. After one time he hugged her tightly, buried his head in her neck and bit her shoulder. His voice was hoarse as he said, Let's go upstairs. If they went to his place it would be one floor away. He was not afraid that his daughter would hear them, right? No, I'm tired. Isiki lay limply in his arms. She was so tired that she did not want to move. Lin Shihao kissed her lips lovingly and did not insist. He said gently, I'll help you shower. A certain someone's hand was still rubbing her waist restlessly. She glared at him and warned him, Don't touch me. Her eyes were like limpid autumn water with a hint of seduction. She was not intimidating at all. Instead, she seemed to be acting coquettishly. His heart swayed and he hugged her even tighter. If I don't touch you, how can I help you shower? He deliberately misinterpreted her meaning. I don't want you to help me. Let's shower separately. Although she was very tired and her body was sore, if she asked him to help, he would definitely do it again. However, she underestimated a certain someone's shamelessness. He did not take her words seriously at all. He directly stripped her naked and helped her shower. Fortunately, he had good self-control and did not ignite his passion again. When they came out of the shower, Nyonyo was already asleep. Lin Shihao held Isiki's waist and retreated out of the room. He gently closed the door and stared at her face with a burning gaze. Isiki had a bad feeling in her heart. Was he thinking of doing it again while the child was asleep? It turned out that she was thinking too much. Lin Shihao bent down and kissed her cheek. He said gently, Rest early. Her cheeks blushed and she was ashamed of her own thoughts. Okay, you should go back and rest too. He hugged her and did not let go. Let's do it together. Isiki pushed him. No, I'm not ready yet. Go back to your house. He smiled bitterly. Honey, how long are we going to stay in separate rooms like this? She blinked and said, Until I'm satisfied with it. He stroked her hair helplessly. Okay, I'll continue to work hard and try to make you satisfied as soon as possible. Thank you, hubby. Hubby, I love you. She smiled brightly and threw herself into his arms. She hugged him and then quickly separated. Well, all the sadness in his heart disappeared when he heard the words, I love you. He looked at her in amusement as she quickly ran into her room and shook his head with a doting expression. She was his nemesis. He would be eaten by her for the rest of his life. However, he was willing to endure it. Chapter 451. Xiaodong took a sip of tea thoughtfully. She blinked and said, It looks like I'll have to live apart from Ahan for a few days sometime soon. Hey, don't join in the fun. Yi Siki rolled her eyes at her in amusement. It wasn't easy for the two of you to be together. You should cherish it. Xiaodong grinned. I'm just teasing you. But to be honest, you found your first love. I think Lin Shihao is going to break down soon. He doesn't feel safe at all being hung up by you every day. Yi Siki glared at her. When did I ever hang him up? I'm very serious about living my life with him. Xiaodong nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, yes. I know you're serious about living your life together. But Lin Shihao doesn't know that. He thinks that you can't let go of the past. In his eyes, if you don't want to go home with him, it means that you don't want to forgive him. Tell me how uneasy and self-reproachful he must be in his heart. Yi Siki was stunned. She smiled guiltily. That seems to be the case. So stop fooling around. Hurry up and move back home. It's been a year. Your house is going to turn into a cave soon. Okay, I got it. Actually, I've already made up my mind. I'll tell him this weekend that I'm moving back home. That's right. Hurry up and go home. Xiaodong suddenly thought of something. She stared into her eyes and said, How's Lin Shihao's mother now? Yi Siki's lips curved. She comes to visit us every few days. She even bought a lot of things for Nyonyo. She hasn't mentioned having a child again. It looks like the old lady has really changed. You don't have to work so hard anymore. Yeah. She even asked the hourly workers to clean our old house regularly. She said that if we keep it clean we can move back in whenever we want. Over the past year, Jiang Rulin had indeed changed a lot. Yisiki gradually believed that Jiang Rulin was truly willing to accept her as her daughter-in-law and no longer cared about her grandson. After parting ways with Xiaodong, Yisiki walked to the parking lot. Her ears echoed with Xiaodong's words, and she suddenly felt a little guilty. She didn't mention going home for so long, which made Shihao feel very embarrassed and uneasy. She picked up her phone, intending to call him and immediately tell him that she was willing to go home with him. Before she could make the call, her phone suddenly rang. It was Lin Shihao. She immediately picked it up and said with a smile, "Hubby, I was just about to call you. I didn't expect you to call me. Let's move home this weekend." A strange woman's voice came into her ears. "Hello, madam. Are you Mr. Lin Shihao's wife?" Yisiki's enthusiasm cooled. She said hesitantly, "Yes, I am. May I know who you are?" "I'm a nurse from Central Hospital. Mrs. Lin, your husband was in a car accident. He's staying in room 813. Nurse Miss said something else, but Yisiki didn't hear a single word. Her entire mind was filled with the words, "Your husband was in a car accident." Her heart almost stopped. Her face was pale, and her fingers trembled as she opened the car door. She stumbled into the driver's seat, but because she was trembling too much, she couldn't start the car. She hurriedly abandoned the car and ran to the side of the road to hail a taxi. In the car, Yisiki kept urging the driver to drive faster. When the car stopped at the entrance of the hospital, she jerked open the door, jumped out of the car, and ran into the hospital as fast as she could. When she ran to the elevator, both elevators had just gone up. She couldn't wait for the elevator to come down and rushed directly to the stairwell. She climbed 7 floors without stopping. When she reached the 8th floor, she was so tired that she was panting. She pressed tightly on her violently beating heart and anxiously looked for room 813 in the corridor. 2 nurses came up to her. One of them said, "The patient who was sent here in a car accident is really pitiful. He broke 4 ribs, his face was smashed, and his head was cracked. When the patient's family members arrive, they probably won't recognize him." "Oh my God, he's so pitiful. His head was cracked, but he's still alive?" "Not at all. His heart stopped in the middle of the operation. They were planning to send him to the morgue." "Sai, there are so many people who get into car accidents these days. Our hospital has to take in a lot of such patients every day." "Yeah, and now I don't even dare to take the driver's license test anymore." The 2 nurses chatted as if there was no one else around, and they brushed past Yisiki. Yisiki's body swayed and she almost fell. She firmly held on to the wall and kept telling herself that it wasn't Shihao. They weren't talking about Shihao. She clutched her chest and continued to look for the ward. Finally, she saw room 813 at the end of the corridor. She ran over excitedly. 2 medical staff pushed a stretcher out of the ward. There was a body lying on the bed, covered with a white cloth. One of the medical staff said, "The patient's family members haven't arrived yet. If we move the patient to the morgue now, we don't know if it will cause any trouble. What can we do? We can't cause panic among the other patients." Yisiki almost stopped breathing. She stared at the body on the stretcher and asked in a trembling voice, "Did he get into a car accident?" "Yes, are you the patient's family?" Was really Shihao. Yisiki felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She almost stopped breathing. The blood on her face suddenly drained. She threw herself on the body, hugged it, and wailed, "Honey, how can you leave me alone? Honey, come back. Come home with me. Honey, madam, don't be sad." A medical staff came forward, intending to help her up. She hugged the body tightly and refused to let go. She cried bitterly and heartbroken. "Lin Shihao, you promised me that you would accompany me to grow old. How can you lie to me? How can you leave me alone? Lin Shihao, don't go. Come back. I love you. If you leave, how am I going to live on my own?" Her tears were like a fountain, wetting her face and clothes as well as the white cloth on the body. She fell into despair and was completely unable to extricate herself. She only knew how to use crying to vent her sadness. The entire corridor was silent, and only her desperate and mournful cries could be heard. "Madam, calm down." The 2 medical staff looked at each other, feeling that something was not right. Honey, let's go home together." Yisiki's face was full of tears and her eyes were empty. She actually picked up the body from the stretcher. It seemed that she was going to carry him home. Wait, madam, you're mistaken. This is not your husband. The two medical staff finally understood what was wrong. They quickly went forward to stop Yisiki, holding her arms on both sides. Go away, don't stop me. Yisiki's eyes were filled with only her husband. She was close to a state of madness. She hugged the body and refused to let go, insisting on taking her husband home. Honey, a helpless and pitiful sigh came from the ward. The familiar voice was like a tranquilizer injected into Yisiki's body. She suddenly froze, turned her head in disbelief, and looked at the door with tears in her eyes. A hand opened the door, and a man wearing a hospital gown with gauze wrapped around his head and a cast on his leg came into her sight. She forgot to cry, forgot that she was still holding the body in her arms, and walked in a daze towards the man standing at the door with a faint smile. Hey madam, please let go of the body. The medical staff took the opportunity to snatch the body from her hands. At this moment, there was no one in her eyes except for the person standing at the door. Her eyes were filled with tears and she took heavy steps towards him. She looked at his handsome and familiar face and burst into tears. Honey. Lin Shihao's voice was hoarse. He opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace. You scared me to death, you scared me to death. Yisiki was like a child. She cried loudly and kept hitting his back. I'm sorry. He gently stroked her back and kissed her hair. His heart ached because of her cries. When they returned to the ward, the two of them sat on the bed in each other's arms. Yisiki's emotions were still unstable. She snorted and said unhappily, Why didn't you come out earlier? You made me cry so loudly just now. It's so embarrassing. Lin Shihao smiled and ruffled her hair. Honey, I was still in a coma. If I wasn't woken up by your cries, I might have slept a little longer. He was still in a coma. In a daze, he heard her heart-wrenching cries. His heart ached so much that he forced himself to open his eyes. He pulled out the 4-needle from the back of his hand and dragged his injured leg to the door. When he opened the door to the ward, he saw his wife crying bitterly with a corpse in her arms. At that moment he felt both funny and heartbroken. When Yisiki heard this, she quickly looked up and checked the injuries on his body. Are your injuries serious? Does it still hurt? Lin Shihao held her hand and smiled gently. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's not that serious. I only have a scratch on my head, and my right leg is slightly fractured. I can be discharged soon. Yisiki knew that he must be lying to her. If it was only a scratch on his head, how could he have fallen into a coma? Her heart ached as she held his face. Hubby, don't hide it from me. You have to tell me where you feel unwell. Yeah, I'm really fine. Lin Shihao looked into her eyes and smiled gently. Shihao, how are you? Jianghu hurriedly pushed the door open and entered. She looked anxious and sweaty. Yisiki quickly extricated herself from Lin Shihao's arms and stood up. Mom, don't worry. Shihao is fine now. Lin Shihao also said, Mom, I'm fine. I just suffered some minor injuries. Ah, that's good. You scared me to death. Jianghu kept patting her chest. After a while she asked, You've always been careful when driving. How did you get into an accident? Lin Shihao briefly explained the situation. It turned out that an oncoming car had hit his car. The driver was driving under the influence and was seriously injured. He passed away not long after being sent to the hospital. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 452. Lin Shihao briefly explained the situation at the time. It turned out that an oncoming car had hit his car. The driver was driving under the influence and was seriously injured. He passed away not long after being sent to the hospital. Yisiki then realized that the person she was hugging and crying just now was the driver who had caused the accident. While she felt sorry for that person, she couldn't help but feel scared. Her husband had almost left her. The moment she saw the corpse, she really felt like the sky had fallen and the world had ended. She understood that she really loved Lin Shihao and couldn't leave him. If something really happened to him, she would definitely not forgive herself. Everyone had their own ups and downs. She didn't want to waste any more time. She expressed her feelings in front of Jianghu. Shihao, when you're discharged from the hospital, let's move back home. Okay. Lin Shihao's deep eyes were full of smiles. The corners of his lips curved as he held her hand tightly. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. I'll contact the moving company right away. The house also needs to be cleaned up. Jianghu was even more excited than the two of them. She was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. She was in full swing helping them arrange things. Yi Siki and Lin Shihao didn't stop her. They held each other's hands tightly and smiled as they watched her busy making calls. Their hearts were full of warmth. Lin Shihao's injuries weren't serious. After staying in the hospital for a day, he wanted to be discharged. Yi Siki and Jianghu definitely wouldn't agree. They insisted that he stay in the hospital for 2 more days for observation. Yi Siki had a leisurely job. Every day after work, she rushed to the hospital to accompany Lin Shihao. Jianghu took the initiative to take the job of picking up Nyonyo so that they could spend more time together. On a September day, when the fragrance of osmanthus was wafting, Yi Siki saw an old woman selling osmanthus flowers on the overpass. 4 or 5 branches were wrapped into a small bouquet of flowers. There was no fancy packaging, but the flowers were flourishing and smelled very fragrant. The old woman's face was full of wrinkles. She opened her toothless mouth and smiled to attract customers. People came and went in a hurry. Very few people stopped. Yi Siki bought a big bouquet and carried it into the ward. Lin Shihao was sitting on a chair in front of the window, reading. The child in the same ward as him was already asleep. The child's father had something to do at the last minute and had to go out. He asked Lin Shihao to help take care of the child. Lin Shihao looked up when he heard footsteps. The setting sun shone through the window and gave him a faint golden hue. The corners of his lips curled up and he said in a low voice, Yi Siki smiled and placed the osmanthus flowers on the bedside table. Then she walked to his side and stroked his leg in plaster with her fingers. She asked softly, "Does your leg still hurt today?" He pulled her to sit beside him and gazed into her eyes with a smile. "Honey, let's go home." "No. You still need to be under observation for a few more days." Lin Shihao was helpless. "I'm fine now. It's really boring to stay in the hospital every day." Yi Siki teased him on purpose. "Why didn't you feel bored in the past?" He smiled bitterly. "I used to be a doctor. Now I'm a patient. How can I be compared to you?" She hugged his arm and leaned on his shoulder. She laughed softly. "Okay, I know it's been hard on you. Let's go home tomorrow." Her smile had a hint of slyness. In fact, she had already moved their luggage home and even tidied up the room. She planned to give him a surprise tomorrow. The next day, Lin Shihao was finally discharged from the hospital. The cast on his leg had not been removed, so it was not very convenient for him to walk. Yi Siki had been supporting him from the moment he got out of the car. When he stepped into the house, Lin Shihao almost did not recognize him. The furniture in the room was brand new. The European-style decoration was fashionable and elegant. There were blooming flowers on the table and coffee table. The spacious and bright room was filled with fragrance and love. Nyonyo's eyes widened in surprise. After looking around, she ran to her room. It was romantic pink and white. A charmingly naive stuffed bear sat on the beautiful little bed. It was like the room of a princess in a fairy tale. She cheered happily and ran back to the living room to share her joy with her parents. "Daddy, Mommy, my room is so beautiful. I like it so much." Yi Siki smiled and patted her daughter's head. "Grandma helped us decorate this room. Remember to thank Grandma." Nyonyo nodded repeatedly. Her smile was as bright as a sunflower. Their master bedroom had also changed a lot. There was a comfortable and wide sofa. The double bed had also become a king-sized bed. There was a comfortable wool carpet in front of the bed. The curtains had been replaced with thin gauze curtains. The outside was covered with heavy dark curtains. There were 2 pairs of couple slippers in front of the bed. 2 sets of couples' pajamas were neatly stacked at the head of the bed. On the bedside table, there were 2 delicate and beautiful red roses in a blue and white porcelain vase. Lin Shihao hugged Yi Siki's waist. His obsidian-like eyes were shining with a smile. He lifted his chin and gestured for Siki to look at the big bed. He smiled ambiguously and said, "We can't let Mom's good intentions go to waste." She didn't understand what he meant at first, but when she saw him smiling so ambiguously and lowering his head to kiss her lips, she suddenly understood. Her cheeks heated up and she closed her eyes, allowing him to deepen the kiss. After a while, he hugged her and they fell onto the big new bed. She struggled uneasily. "Your leg." He teased her earlobe and chuckled mischievously. "My leg is injured. My waist is fine." Her cheeks were burning hot. His hands rubbed her until her entire body was numb. She almost could not hold it in. However, she was still rational. She bit her lip and gasped. "You're making love in broad daylight?" He gently bit the softness in front of her chest and murmured vaguely, "Who said we can only have sex at night?" She pushed his head away. "Nyonyo is still outside. Nyonyo is in the room. She won't hear." Home was good. The soundproofing was good. Lin Shihao was very satisfied. He raised his head and blocked her chattering little mouth. He swallowed all her protests and sucked on her tongue as if punishing her. She gradually gave up resisting and hooked her arms around his neck. His magical hands ignited her body. Her breathing became faster and faster, and her body became more and more tense. She tilted her head back, outlining the beautiful curve of her neck. Her lower body was close to his waist. She rubbed against him uneasily and let out a sexy moan. "Hubby." Her starry eyes opened slightly, and her delicate lips parted slightly. She seemed to be anticipating something, but she was holding back her embarrassment and did not dare to say it. Her passionate and sexy reaction made him even harder. He used his fingers to test her. After confirming that she was ready, he parted her legs and rushed into that hot and humid secret place. She suddenly let out a soft cry. "Is it very painful?" He restrained his impulse and stopped moving. His voice was hoarse. She shook her head slightly. He lowered his head and kissed her. As he kissed her, he moved his waist. His movements gradually turned from gentle and slow to wild and intense. The room was filled with a charming scene. The roses in the vase seemed to have bloomed even more brilliantly. After a round of lovemaking, the two of them hugged each other and enjoyed the quiet beauty. After the aftertaste, Yisiki lifted her head to check on his leg. He pulled her back and said with a unique hoarse voice, "Don't worry. My leg is fine." After she sat up, a warm liquid flowed out. She awkwardly tightened the blanket. Thinking that he was sweating all over and must be feeling very uncomfortable, she said, "Hubby, let me help you wipe your body." After he was injured, his legs could not get wet. She had always been the one to help him wipe his body. In the hospital, he was very obedient when she helped him wipe his body. However, it was different when they were home. The two of them locked themselves in the bathroom. He took advantage of her and teased her to do things that made her blush and her heart beat faster. After the two of them finished showering, they snuggled on the sofa. She leaned on his chest as he stroked her short hair. He lowered his eyes and gazed lovingly at her charming eyes. "Wife, have I ever told you that being loved by you is the luckiest thing that has happened to me in my life?" She smiled. "No." "Then have I ever told you that being able to marry you is the luckiest thing in my life?" The smile on her face deepened. "No." He suddenly cupped her face and stared at her seriously. He said slowly in a sincere tone that was almost like an oath, "Mrs. Lin, I'm telling you very seriously that being loved by you is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Being able to marry you is the happiest thing that has ever happened to me. I'll love you forever." Her face was full of smiles, and her beautiful eyes were already glowing. She raised her head and gave him a light peck on the lips. Then she hugged his neck and said seriously, "Mr. Lin, I love you too. I love you very much." The sun was warm and the years were silent. They held each other's hands. In this lifetime it would never change. A month later, Lin Shihao's leg recovered. It was just in time for Jiang Rulin's 60th birthday. Lin Shihao and his wife discussed for a while and decided to celebrate her birthday at a 5-star hotel. They invited their relatives and friends to gather and have a lively atmosphere. In addition to relatives and friends, they also invited business partners. Everyone gathered together and laughed happily. It was very lively. As a friend of Nyonyo's godfather, Siki Xiaotianxing was also invited. After greeting the host and playing with Nyonyo for a while, he walked over to Xiaodong's table. When the children saw him, they all greeted him affectionately. He patted the children's little heads and sat down opposite Bailey Han. He sighed and said, "Your big family is so happy. How can a lonely person like me endure it?" Bailey Han raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "I remember that when we got married, second young master Xiao mocked us for stepping into the grave. Why do you want to step into the grave now?" Xiaodong chuckled. Xiao Tianxing coughed. "Han, men should be broad-minded. You're too petty for nagging at me until now when I'm drunk." Bailey Han didn't argue with him. He glanced at him with a faint smile in his deep black eyes. "It must be hard for a playboy like you to want to get married. I won't laugh at you. However, you have to find someone to marry first. Do you have someone in mind? Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 453. Xiao Tianxing grinned and naturally exuded an air of elegance. Isn't that simple? A handsome and rich eligible bachelor like me only needs to wave my finger and countless women will throw themselves at me. As he smiled, his eyes silently swept past Yisiki in the crowd. Today she was wearing a black evening gown with a white fox fur shawl draped over her shoulders. She was extremely beautiful. Xiao Yi placed her hand on her forehead and looked as if she was having a headache. She sighed and said, "Uncle Xiao, the women you wave your finger at are either money-loving or lustful. It's hard to tell if they are sincere or not." Xiao Tianxing's face darkened. Bailey Han nodded in satisfaction. "Look, even my son understands this better than you." Xiao Tianxing gritted his teeth. "Your family is deliberately making fun of me, isn't it?" Xiao Bao winked. "Uncle Xiao, we are not making fun of you. We are just trying to stimulate you. Only with stimulation will you have the motivation to rush into the grave of marriage. Don't you think so?" Xiao Tianxing's mouth twitched. "So, I have to thank you?" Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao said in unison, "You're welcome. Our name is Red Scarf." Bailey Han and Xia Dong laughed at the same time. Xiao Tianxing's face darkened even more. "Uncle Xiao, don't be angry. Here's a candy for you." Xiao Guai, who was sitting next to him, unwrapped a piece of chocolate and stuffed it into his mouth. Then she patted his head as if she was comforting a small animal and smiled sweetly. "Uncle Xiao, you will definitely find a good woman." Why did he feel that the chocolate in his mouth was so bitter? Xiao Tianxing pulled a long face and pinched Xiao Guai's delicate and cute little nose. "Digai, thank you so much. After listening to your comforting words, I seem to feel even worse." Xiao Guai giggled. She was as beautiful as a brilliant sunflower. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi also laughed, but they seemed to be watching a good show. Xiao Tianxing snorted angrily. A han was a black-bellied wolf. How could the children he raised be kind little lambs? They were all wolf cubs, okay. It seemed that he had to quickly find someone to give birth to a child for him. At least, when he bickered with Bailey's children in the future, someone would be on his side. The hall was filled with toasts and laughter. Xiao Tianxing was slightly drunk. He looked at them laughing from afar as if he was an outsider. He shook his head self-deprecatingly. It seemed that he was really drunk. He actually felt a little lonely. He held the wine glass in his hand and walked to the balcony. He casually placed the wine glass on the coffee table and leaned against the rattan chair. He closed his eyes and rested for a while. He did not know when, but he heard the crisp sound of high heels. A beautiful figure stood beside him. Her clear voice was like a spring that slowly flowed into his heart. "Tianxing, are you okay?" Xiao Tianxing slowly opened his eyes. He saw Yisiki bending over and looking at him. Her beautiful face was slightly worried. He smiled. "I'm fine." She smiled and sat in the rattan chair opposite him. "Old madam likes the gift you gave her. Sorry to have made you spend so much money." He adjusted his sitting position and slightly straightened his body. "You don't have to be so polite. As long as old madam likes it." She tucked her hair behind her ear and pursed her lips. "You're not young anymore. Quickly find someone to fall in love with and then enter the grave of marriage." Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows. There was a teasing smile in his deep eyes. "Don't tell me my old man asked you to be a lobbyist?" He was Nyonyo's godfather. He once brought Nyonyo to old Master Xiao's birthday banquet. Old Master Xiao liked the clever Nyonyo very much. Since then, the Xiao family and the Lin family had a friendship. For example, today, although old Master Xiao could not attend Jianghu birthday banquet because of health reasons, he asked his youngest son to bring gifts and blessings. Yisiki smiled. "I really can't hide it from your sharp eyes. Uncle Xiao did talk to me about this matter. He said that the day after tomorrow he will have dinner with Xinhua Group's CEO and daughter. He repeatedly urged you to attend. Don't forget." Xiao Tianxing was helpless. "What dinner? Isn't it just a blind date in disguise? I heard that the daughter of Xinhua Group is rumored to be an unruly and willful princess. I don't have the time to play around with her. Rumors can't be trusted. Maybe she's a very good girl. Go and have a look. Don't make things difficult for Uncle Xiao." He stared at her. "Yisiki, aren't you going too far? You know that I haven't let you go yet, but you still colluded with my old man to make me attend this blind date." Yisiki's expression changed. She quietly clenched her fingers and forced a smile. "I'm sorry. I went too far." Her gloomy expression was like a knife cutting into his heart. He sighed silently and said slowly, "I've gone overboard. Don't take it to heart." The two of them fell silent at the same time. The atmosphere was a little awkward. After a few minutes, Yi Siki pursed her lips and gazed into his deep eyes. She said softly, "Tianxing, I hope you'll be happy." His eyes moved slightly. He met her eager gaze and smiled self-deprecatingly. He once said that whether she loved him or not, whether she accepted him or not, he didn't mind. He only hoped that she could be happy. Now that she was happy, what else was he waiting for? He should let go and stop bothering her. He wanted to be happy and make her feel at ease. He raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "Okay, I'll be happy. I'll be happy." This was a promise. When he came out of the hotel, his assistant stopped the car at the entrance and waited for him. He hugged Nyo and smiled as he said goodbye to Jianghu and the others. Then he got into the car. After turning a corner, Xiao Tianxing ordered lightly, "Stop the car." The pedestrians on the street were hurried. The roadside was filled with flowers and the fragrance of osmanthus wafted through the air. He suddenly felt like walking alone for a while. He got out of the car and ordered his assistant, "Drive the car back to the company." He had always been free and easy when doing things. His assistant was already used to it and listened to his orders and drove away. Xiao Tianxing put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked casually on the street. It was September and the cool breeze brought with it a fragrant scent. It was very comfortable and even the drunkenness had dissipated. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from the corner. That person was holding a beautiful woman's handbag. He ran forward like the wind and knocked into many people. Bang! Xiao Tianxing was hit hard by someone. Before he could react, the man with the woman's handbag had already brushed past his shoulder and ran far away. As he ran, he looked back with a panicked expression on his face. He looked like a thief who was being chased. Thief? Xiao Tianxing's eyes flashed. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have meddled in other people's business. But today he was in a bad mood. Meddling in other people's business and making the thief in a bad mood seemed to be a good thing. He chased after him. "Thief, don't run." A woman's voice faintly came from behind him. Xiao Tianxing didn't take it to heart. He only focused on chasing the thief in front of him. The thief had been forced to a dead end and was so tired that he was panting. Xiao Tianxing increased his strength and suddenly grabbed the thief's collar. "Let's see where you can run to." The thief was a hooligan in his 20s. He cried and begged for mercy. "I beg you, let me go. I'll return the bag to you." At this moment, the woman's voice was getting closer. "Thief, don't run." The thief rolled his eyes and without saying a word, he stuffed the bag into Xiao Tianxing's hands. Then he pushed him away and turned to run. Xiao Tianxing broke into a run. Unexpectedly, a whistling sound came from behind him. A swift and fierce leg swept fiercely toward his leg. Xiao Tianxing's attention was all on the thief who had fled into the crowd. He didn't think that someone would sneak up on him from behind. That person kicked his leg and a piercing pain came. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. He angrily turned around wanting to see who had sneaked up on him. Unexpectedly, just as he turned his head, a fist swung at his face. Pa! He could almost hear the bone in his cheek breaking. Xiao Tianxing lay on the ground in the most miserable position in his life. He was so angry that he was about to explode. That person didn't think it was enough and stretched out his leg to continue to hit him. He grabbed that person's slender ankle and said angrily, "Miss, what are you doing?" "What am I doing?" "Of course I'm teaching you a lesson, you damn thief." The woman whose ankle he was grabbing had a head of beautiful short hair. Her facial features were well defined, and there was a valiant charm between her eyebrows. She frowned and kicked hard, quickly pulling her right foot out of his hand. Her movements were neat and beautiful. Xiao Tianxing was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. His dark eyes were rolling with anger as he stared at her. His tone was extremely cold. "Miss, are you blind? I'm a good person who acted courageously for a just cause. That damn thief who should be taught a lesson by you has already run away." Ren Yu's expression froze. She carefully looked at the man who had been beaten to the ground by her. He was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He was handsome beyond compare. Although his posture was a little awkward, his whole body exuded a cold and domineering aura. And the thief she had chased just now was wearing a black t-shirt. *CK she had made a mistake. Ren Yu couldn't help but curse. She hurriedly retracted her fighting posture and hurriedly bent down to help Xiao Tianxing up. She repeatedly apologized, I'm sorry, I made a mistake." After being beaten up for no reason, Xiao Tianxing's anger had yet to subside. He slapped her hand away and stood up gracefully. He tidied up his messy clothes and stared coldly at Ren Yu. It seemed that he had no intention of letting her off. Rin Yuyu's scalp went numb from his stare. She laughed awkwardly. I'm really sorry. I'll send you to the hospital. I'll pay for your medical expenses. His leg and face were in pain, especially his face, which was burning. He didn't know how a young lady could have so much strength. Xiao Tianxing was depressed and angry. He snorted coldly. I'm most satisfied with this face. If it's disfigured, how are you going to compensate me? Rin Yuyu glanced guiltily at his red and swollen cheeks. No. After the swelling subsides, you'll be a handsome man again. Xiao Tianxing's lips moved. Just as he was about to say something, a sweet and slightly anxious voice sounded. Cousin, what happened? Are you okay? Rin Yuyu hurriedly turned around and saw her cousin Yun Yi, walking quickly with Li Duobao from afar. Rin Yuyu said anxiously, I'm fine. I had Duobao walk slowly. It's okay, I'm fine. Have you caught the thief? It was a very familiar voice. Xiao Tianxing looked over and saw Yun Yi holding Li Duobao's arm. Duobao was wearing a maternity dress with a white cardigan on the outside. She probably walked in a hurry because her forehead was sweating and her cheeks were red like apples. She also saw Xiao Tianxing and was shocked. Mr. Xiao? What happened to your face? Xiao Tianxing snappily glared at Rin Yuyu. Isn't it because of your friend? He actually treated me as a thief and beat me up. Attention Hongcha 866, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.